you've said, Rich. I'm gonna be tidier around the office.
Okay.
Yeah, and just less me.
Fantastic.
I'm just gonna be more Rich.
Perfect. The listeners will love it.
Yes.
Excellent. Look, I'll say, where do we start? There's only one place we can start, isn't there, really?
Yes.
7, open brackets, SEVEN, close brackets, 2.
Yes.
Yeah.
It was a thumping, wasn't it?
It really
was.
was.
A demolition job.
It was, and I know that, of course, there's going to be all sorts of criticism today for Pochettino, for Spurs, all the issues that we've touched on so many times. I think it's 17 defeats in 36 games, I want to say.
Yeah,
I might need to be corrected on that. But there's something obviously definitely not right. You think back not so long ago where they were in touching distance at the top of the table last season, how things have fallen away since then. What I would say about last night was those goals, each of the goals, absolutely fantastic. And we can go through some of them individually. Obviously, Gnabry, some of the goals that he scored. But Lewandowski, what a player.
Can we just settle on whether or not we're going to call him Gnabry or Nabry?
Well, what do you want to go
Because this is the eternal debate, isn't it?
I'm going to put a G there. I know ordinarily it would be silent, wouldn't it? So if we think of gnome, I don't say gnome.
Exactly.
I know.
That's why I'm saying this. You see?
Well, you say Nabry and I'll say Gnabry.
Okay,
all
right,
we'll just
cool.
confuse the listener.
Because the commentators were flicking through the two of them last night.
Yeah.
But anyway, so Nabry, I'll go for that.
Yeah.
Who was deemed surplus to requirements by Tony Pulis at West Brom.
Didn't quite fit in.
Didn't quite get the mould, did he?
Yeah.
Put the big lad up top. Knock it to his head, and then hopefully it goes out for a throw-in, which we will chuck into the box.
Yeah.
So this kind of twinkle-toed genius was obviously not for Tony Pulis. However, he scored an unbelievable number of goals last night. Scored 4, and each of them was almost better than the last. Bayern Munich was a lesson in ruthless German efficiency.
Oh yeah.
It was sensational. It was like a conveyor belt of goals, just each one getting better than the last.
And even when the game was done at 5-2, could have shut up shop, could have just relaxed, played the last few minutes. No, we'll get 6. No, we'll get 7. Peter Crouch was quite succinct with his analysis.
You can't get beat 7 at home. I don't care who's against. Bayern Munich or whoever. You can't get beat 7. And these are top players, international players.
Yeah. That was succinct.
That's good insight.
That was really good insight.
Yeah,
you can't.
Because before that, I thought maybe you could get beat 7 at home, and it would all be fine.
It's cleared that up just in case.
Yeah.
8 is probably okay, but 7 you just can't get beat at 7. But
just to say, that was actually called Quote of the Night by BT Sport, which I think gives a little insight into maybe the calibre of their commentary, doesn't it?
Okay, interesting. Crouch also said that this will have a lasting effect on the players.
How will a defeat like this, a humiliating defeat, a record-breaking home defeat, affect Tottenham going forward?
That's what I said before the game. I think this is a pivotal game for them because they've gone into the lead in a lot of matches this season and then capitulated. And I thought today they could set a marker down. I thought Dele Alli could have had a good game and set his season alight. But it's worked in completely the opposite manner. It's a huge crushing blow to them, and they will suffer. Hopefully not, but hopefully that they will suffer a hangover from this.
So Abby Clancy, Peter Crouch's missus, who is tiny, by the way, so that's just interesting. She did a piece yesterday where she said that he wasn't scoring any goals when he got to Liverpool, and so she went out with her mum and bought him some lucky pants, and then he forgot them when Liverpool were playing Spurs away, and he paid £600 for a taxi driver to drive back, get his lucky underwear, and drive to the game in which he scored.
That can't be true.
Yeah,
absolutely true.
Yeah, they also have a special bed. Because he's massive.
Nice. He is massive. Well, look, we've got more from Crouch. Seems like he's the star of the show. Crouch said this result proves the critics have been right about Spurs.
But people have been questioning the character right from the start of the season. Questioning players that wanted to go away, the Erikssons, the Vertonghen's, and people not signing contracts. And a result like this is only going to ask more questions. Yeah.
I feel like we're about to welcome Peter Crouch into the studio.
Yeah. Peter Crouch, this is your life. It's the longest book in history. So have you ever had any lucky pants?
There was actually a company that tried to cash in on this. They were called Lucky Pants.
Oh, really?
I was given a pair of them, I didn't wear them, though, I'll be honest. No, it wasn't really my thing. I had lucky other bits. Had my lucky stone.
Yeah, so you did have a lucky stone, didn't you? Just talk me through that one again.
Just got given it when I was younger, decided it was lucky, took it everywhere for years.
Did you take it to games?
To games. Gave it a little kiss before the game.
Oh, have you still got it?
Nope, lost it.
Oh,
Career went downhill.
Right. Oh, okay. Good
Anyway,
morning.
So, back on the subject of Spurs. Look, lots of individuals that no doubt we will talk about. First and foremost, from a positive, started the game very well, it has to be said. I'm going to hold my hands up. I was flicking between this, and you know how much I love the Championship.
Oh, yeah.
So I was watching West Brom Leeds as well, which was also a very interesting game. But I was watching, obviously, a lot of this as well, so flicking between the two. And they certainly started the game well. Excellent finish from Son. I mean, it was a brilliant equaliser, and I actually ended up getting on a little bit of a row on Twitter because there was a certain comment from Glenn Hoddle questioning whether Hugo Lloris could have done more, which, by the way, Hugo Lloris could have done nothing about any of the 7 goals. 7 brilliant finishes.
Did Glenn Hoddle say that maybe Hugo Lloris did something wrong in a previous life and therefore he's conceded 7?
It might have been along those lines,
yeah.
Which, look, we're all welcome to our beliefs.
Classic Glenn.
He's a
What's he
character.
like, eh?
What a character. No, look, it was one of them for me. All 7. Defensively, you can look at a couple, and, Lewandowski, I think it was the second goal it might have been, where he's on the turn, put it into the corner, where really Spurs should clear their lines. They don't. That ends up being quite a pivotal moment. I say that even when Harry Kane obviously makes it 4-2, and you feel like maybe there's a chance of a comeback, there does seem to be something at the core of Spurs which just isn't quite right. They don't have that, whether it's that grit, that steel that they did have for a long period of time last season. We were talking a lot about the expression Spursy and how it had died away. And I don't know, you just worry. The fact that they have lost as many games as they have over the last 30-odd game period, that is concerning.
Yeah, and I think that's what we have to talk about, really, which is what now for Poch. But just before that, I'm just going to hit you with some raw stats.
Go on.
Okay, so 44. Robert Lewandowski has been directly involved in 44 goals in just 54 Champions League appearances for Bayern Munich, 38 goals and 5 assists. 7. No player has been directly involved in more goals at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium than Son Heung-min. 7. He's level with Christian Eriksen. 194. Just 194 seconds between Son's opener for Spurs and Joshua Kimmich's equaliser for Bayern Munich. Spurs' 7-2 loss is the biggest ever margin of defeat by an English team at home in any European competition. And Harry Kane has scored more Champions League goals versus German teams, that's 5, than against any other nation in the competition.
With some interesting stats. We did speak quite a lot about Lewandowski yesterday. I mean, look, obviously fantastic player. And we did question whether they could handle the big pole. And unfortunately, they couldn't.
No, they couldn't. They just couldn't get to grips with the big pole, could they?
No.
And in the end, the pole was just rampant.
He was. It was a very impressive performance from him. Okay, let's touch on Poch, because, again, there will be lots of question marks. I know a lot of, I was listening to a couple of fan shows last night, and of course they're all ringing in. This is the end of the road. It's been great, but now it's time for a change. Do we feel that is the case?
Well, potentially, yes. I mean, Poch came out and said it's difficult to talk now. I said nothing after the game. We have to stay together, but we have to face this like men.
Well, in fact, let's hear from Mr. Pochettino.
I think I don't need too much time to explain. I think we play 30 minutes really, really well. I think we start the game really compact, really aggressive, pressing high. I think we dominate the game in the first 30 minutes. Unlucky that we concede on the end of the first half, in the last minute, and the last action, 2-1. And of course, after they were very clinical, because I think it's not too much difference about shoot or attempts, but they were very clinical. And after 8 or 9 minutes on the second half was 4-1, and after we scored the penalty for 2. And we had some chances to score the third and be on the game, but of course in the last from the 83 and 88, I think we conceded 3 more goals, and tough result because no show. I think it's too much. It's too much and it's too hard to accept this type of result, but in football happen when the opponent is have the quality and is like today very clinical in front of the goal. Every single touch was inside, and nothing to say. It's only of course that we are very disappointed, very upset, but of course that we need to stay all together. A message of the togetherness and the state. I think strong in our mentality, and we need to lift our player because Saturday we have another game.
That was, of course, Mr. Pochettino. Hargreaves was a little bit critical of Pochettino.
One thing I would say is I hope they don't play out from the back, because today they got caught 4 times, and at times you want to play, but Bayern played safe. Every time he touched it, he had an option on. I think at times Tottenham were trying to play, and it wasn't really on. So I think if you're Tottenham, maybe the 2 up the pitch, maybe they needed 1 more midfield so they had a different angle, or the out ball or somewhere. It didn't look like the out ball was on.
Got to protect the fullbacks more.
Well, they need, because they had the 2 up. I felt sorry for the fullbacks because they literally had 1v1 against 2 of the best athletes probably in the Champions League.
That was, of course, Mr. Owen Hargreaves. Moving away from this game, which no doubt we're going to be covering a lot in today's show, and in fact we have got Mr. Gary Mabbott coming on later. Who better to go through that game than Gary Mabbott? We'll be speaking to him later. Just to touch on a couple of the bits in the Championship, of course, it was an interesting night of fixtures and results. The Leeds have gone top of the table. They beat West Brom, but it was a dreadful night for Stoke. They lost 1-0 at home to Huddersfield, find themselves rooted rock bottom on 2 points, 6 points now adrift of Reading, who are just outside the playoff places. Nathan Jones says he gambled with people's lives by leaving Luton. He's still in a job as we speak, although we'll see how that one plays out today. Just to give you some of the other results, Hull beat Sheffield Wednesday, Blackburn drew with Forest, Middlesbrough drew with Preston, Wigan beat Birmingham, Reading lost at home to Fulham, good win for Fulham. We'll talk about that no doubt as well. But I want to talk about Salazar very quickly, and again we'll go into more detail on this as well. UK Athletics review into Salazar branded a sham as the fallout continues. Farah's been defended by Paula Radcliffe, who is a Nike athlete, and Steve Cram, but Martin Samuel argues that there will now always be an asterisk next to Farah's achievements.
Yes, there absolutely will be, and rightly so as well. Farah pre-Salazar won the European 5,000 metres, European 10,000 metres, European Cup, Euro Team Champs, and the Euro Indoors 3000. So you've got there is a kind of continental success. And then Farah with Salazar, Olympic 10,000 metres, Olympic 5,000 metres. You've got the World Championships 10,000, the World Championships 5,000. These are across multiple different years. European 5,000, European 10, European Team Champs, European Indoors, i.e. unbridled and unparalleled global success in the wake of Salazar becoming his coach. Just some interesting things emerging about Salazar this morning. So he's a 61-year-old Cuban-born coach who fronted up Nike's Oregon project, which is the elite athlete training program. It was a bit of a mixture between athletics and science, and it was seen as being kind of revolutionary by Nike. And it was initially designed so that American athletes could compete with a lot of the African distance runners. But then in the end, obviously, they ended up rafting in Mo Salah. I know we're going to talk about this in a bit more detail, but some really incriminating stuff, such as Salazar using his 2 sons as guinea pigs in order to test new substances, and him even emailing Lance Armstrong to say, Lance, call me, we've tested it, it's amazing. We all know, of course, what Lance Armstrong was into.
We're going to be talking about this more very shortly. 7:15.
Love sport.
You all right, mate?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Yeah? Really? It's just, there's a massive grizzly bear sitting on you. You sure you're okay?
Well, now that you mention it,
sometimes we say we're fine when we're not. But with 1 in 4 experiencing a mental health problem, if your mate says he's fine, he might not be. Be in your mate's corner and ask twice. Time to change.
Don't get caught out in the great energy price hike as large firms look to charge you more. If you want to save money on your energy bills, it's not too late to see what's on the market. With rising gas and electricity bills, don't get caught out wasting your money on expensive tariffs. A Spokesman Said will show you the very best value deals available. Check out aspokesmansaid.com and you could be using your savings to put towards a well-earned holiday.
With aspokesmansaid.com. Fighting for you, saving you money.
If you're in business, I bet you hate wasting money. We Do Taxi Tops can help you achieve minimum wastage on your advertising costs and maximum exposure. Our revolutionary taxi tops can target your potential customers in the right place at the right time, so your message has the greatest potential for making an impact. We Do Taxi Tops. Visit wedooh.com. We Do. The smarter, quicker way of advertising in London, supporting London businesses of all sizes.
Exercise. It doesn't have to mean Lycra or a fancy gym membership. All you need is 10 minutes and you. Because a regular 10-minute brisk walk is a great way to get more active. Whether that's walking to the shops or getting off the bus to stop early. Picking up the pace and getting your heart pumping can make a real difference to your health. So, to see how much brisk walking you're doing, and how you can fit more into your day, download the free Active 10 app, because there's only one you.
I gave Kim Jong-un the upper hand, but only a tiny one.
Love sport.
That's for breakfast. Me, Richard Lee, Patrick Christys, here with you until 10. We love to talk about the back pages. We talk about the front pages. We also talk business.
It's business. It's business time. I know what you're trying to say. You're trying to say it's time for business. It's business time.
Ooh, it's business.
Hello, Rich.
It's getting a little bit lower today. I enjoyed that. Mr. Chris Bailey, founder of financialorbit.com.
Good morning. Good morning. That was very good. That one. I thought that was nicely unified. It sort of, tonally was quite attractive. I thought.
Well, I'm not going to lie. I am waiting for the day that you join in, because I think that could add a really interesting harmony.
It could do, but that's just weird. I think that would just be that would just sound like lower my contribution tone. I think really.
It's not very business-like, is it, Rich? It wouldn't be very business-like.
At the moment, you have lots of credibility, and that could just fade in an instant. So
I think the best thing to go from me to you, Chris, is just let go of all the hope. Yeah. Just let go of it all.
There you go.
I did about 20 years ago, but spitting it out since basically.
All right, let's get stuck in. Waitrose boss to step down in £100 million cuts.
Yeah, no, John Lewis, nice, cuddly organisation, never knowingly undersold and all of that. They've got they've got the knife out, actually. They've get rid of a third of their headquarters staff. They're merging John Lewis and Waitrose, kind of it begs the question. I thought they were already part of the same company. But anyway, they're getting rid of sort of divisions, and a lot of people, the Waitrose boss is going, clearly he didn't like it. I think he's being compensated, though, by about £1 million payoffs. I'm sure that's just about workable for him. And, so, they're getting the nicer. The reason they're doing this, of course, is because it is grisly out there and a bit tough, and they may be never knowingly undersold, but the trouble is online and everything else, it's just very competitive. So this is their turnaround strategy, I guess you would say.
Okay, interesting. And Greggs to stockpile bacon and tuna in Brexit fears.
Well, and pork as well, which of course begs the question. I don't suppose many people realise there was actually pork in the Greggs sausage roll, but they're doing this because of Brexit. They're worried about supplies and having to import various things from various countries around the world. And as you say, be it bacon, tuna, pork, etc., they're concerned. They want to make sure that if you want to pop in on the day after Halloween for your sausage roll or whatever else, then they're going to be able to supply it to you. So I guess you'd call that kind of prudent sort of business management, but obviously it captures the headlines because, part of Brexit fear and related, really, isn't it?
Yeah, well, Patrick certainly breathed a sigh of relief just there on that bacon news. Banksy launches homeware shop.
Well, Banksy, you've got to say, I do love Banksy. I don't obviously know who he is. Nobody does. It could be me, it could be you guys. Who knows who Banksy is? But he's a clever guy in the sense that there's a bit of a dispute at the moment. A greetings card company is kind of potentially sort of illegally infringing his trademark. And the way to get round it, apparently, for Banksy is to start trading as Banksy. So he started up a shop, which is amusingly called Gross Domestic Product, which is a joke itself on a business joke in a strange way. But it's actually not selling anything. You can't actually get into it. It's just a locked shop. All the merchandise is for sale online. And it's sort of all things like, and it's quite remarkable. I would suggest listeners interested, go and have a look. It's quite fascinating. You got stuff like police helmets, one of those sort of riot police helmets with a glitter ball, one of the disco glitter balls kind of embedded in it, which, is completely bizarre. The sort of thing, obviously you probably wouldn't wear unless it was on a night out or something. And, this is Banksy's pushback against people trying to infringe his copyright and trademark. It's sort of an in-joke, a shop that can't open and products that are completely pointless nobody would want to buy.
Fantastic. Sounds great. Chris, as always, thank you.
Yeah, pleasure.
Great stuff. Chris Bailey there, founder of financialorbit.com.
Yeah, my favourite Banksy thing is when he shredded that picture.
Oh, brilliant.
So he went, and it was, I think, Sotheby's is the auction house, which is obviously one of the world's largest auction houses. And you've got all these people sat there bidding the highest bidder for this Banksy painting, and he buys it, and then it triggers the thing, and it just shreds it in front of them. I just thought it was brilliant.
Very clever, which in a weird way probably added value to it.
It did add value. It immediately went up by about £250,000.
Yeah, I bet he was delighted.
But that's art, isn't it? So I think it's Jessica Emin made, I think, something like £8 million out of the unmade bed. I've got one of those at home now. I've got one of those now. Have it. There's that one that sold for about 25 million quid, which is a perfect blue square in the middle of a paint. I can do that.
Well, what constitutes art?
Nothing. It's pointless.
Okay.
It's ridiculous, isn't it? Art is just so rich people can kind of stand in front of things and say things like, "Oh, nice aspect," while they just each bask in how wealthy they already are.
What do you think? 0207020.
Art with Patrick Christys.
558. This is a new show that we're planning on launching. I think it's going to be good. Commentator John Murray made a comparison to Arsenal under Arsene Wenger as Spurs were thrashed by Bayern.
Genuinely shocking scoreline. I don't think any of us were expecting this sort of thing to happen here tonight. And if you remember back to when Arsenal would play Bayern Munich regularly in the late days of Arsene Wenger, and Bayern Munich would knock in 5 goals a time, things were seriously wrong at Arsenal at the time. We knew that, and I remember it was like history repeating itself every time Arsenal played them. But for this Tottenham team that have been on such an upward curve, for this to happen to them, Chris is absolutely right. It makes you think, where are they?
Okay, you're neither an Arsenal or a Spurs fan.
No.
It's well known you're a Manchester United fan. Would you rather be an Arsenal or Spurs fan right now?
Arsenal. I've thought that for a while, actually.
Really?
I think, yeah, you just, I just would. Don't really know why. But no, Spurs are in a little bit of trouble at the moment. And what next for Poch is the thing here, because doesn't it show if Spurs fans are starting to come out and say, maybe the time has come? What a difference a couple of months makes, realistically. And I do think that he is owed, Spurs fans owe him like a little bit of longevity here. But it's whether or not Poch wants it. It doesn't look to me as though a man who's still up for a fight. I just feels to me like a boxer who's gone 15 rounds and is being asked to go 5 more and just can't quite do it anymore.
Who sings that song? We've come to the end of the road.
Is it Boys to Men?
Is it?
Yeah.
Do you think we're there?
That's the song that Tammy Abraham sung as his initiation.
Did he?
Yeah.
Oh, and did it brilliantly.
Oh, it's fantastic.
Yeah,
seriously, Tammy Abraham set of pipes on that lad.
It's really annoying when someone has more than one talent. You kind of feel like you're given a talent, go and make the most of it. When you're given 2 or 3, then it's just like,
you can sing though.
Not really.
You can dance a bit.
That's not true.
You can act. You're a triple threat, mate.
Again,
I'm
none of
not
these
a
are
threat.
true. No, you're not. Which is what works for you. You fly under the radar.
Oh, yeah, big time. Should we talk about Mo Farah and the shattered remains of his career?
We can touch on that. Absolutely.
Yeah, good. Talking of things getting shredded. So, Mo Farah's coach, Alberto Salazar, 61-year-old Cuban-born coach, who fronted up the Nike Oregon Project. The Nike Oregon Project, of course, is essentially their elite athlete program. At the Nike Oregon Project, by the way, there is a building named after Salazar and one named after Lance Armstrong. As well, which is lovely. Yes. So Salazar has been banned from athletics for 4 years for essentially transporting testosterone, trying to manipulate the results of drugs tests, and trying to administer intravenous drips to athletes with, performance-enhancing drugs inside them. Now, some interesting things are coming out here today because Mo Farah is such a key player in all this. Whether or not he wants to be, I'm sure he doesn't want to be, of course. But he is. He's wrapped up in this now because Salazar's cheating essentially was so endemic. He even used his 2 sons as guinea pigs to test out new performance-enhancing drugs. He also even sent an email to Lance Armstrong at one point after testing the drug L-carnitine, which helps convert fat into energy. He messaged Lance Armstrong to say, "Lance, call me ASAP. We've tested it and it's amazing. You are the only athlete I'm going to tell the actual numbers to, other than Galen Rupp. It's too incredible. All completely legal and natural. You will finish the Ironman in about 16 minutes less while taking this. Alberto." So, Rupp, of course, is the bloke who came second to Mo Farah as well in the 10,000 metres in London 2012. That particular result, whistleblower Steve Magnus described as one of the most disheartening moments of his life. So Steve Magnus was Salazar's assistant coach for quite a while, so clearly had a first-hand experience of all this. He's one of the whistleblowers to this, and his insinuation there, of course, is that the 2 athletes who won possibly shouldn't have won. and that's why he's as disheartened as he is. This is just going to run and run and run, and Mo Farah can't escape this anymore. He just can't escape this. Run and run and run. He can't escape this anymore. You just have to look at his record to see why questions are being raised. Before Salazar, Mo Farah had not won a world championship. Post Salazar, he won the Olympic 10,000 metres 2012, 2016, 5,000 metres 2012, 2016, world champ, just loads of stuff. He just won it all.
So as it stands, we have to believe that Salazar was also an excellent coach as well as being a drugs cheat, and maybe just with Mo Farah, he was just an excellent coach, and Mo really kicked on.
Yeah, 100%. That's what we have to believe.
Okay, 3 minutes to 7.
This is Love Sport.
Get ready for Brexit on the 31st of October. Brexit will bring changes that affect businesses in many ways, particularly if you buy from EU suppliers, sell to EU customers, provide services to EU clients, and receive customer data from other businesses in the EU. Businesses need to prepare. Find out how at gov.uk/Brexit. Get ready for Brexit on the 31st of October.
Don't get caught out by rising energy bills this year. Leading price comparison site A Spokesman Said can help you save money in just minutes. Plus, sign up to A Spokesman Said to get the latest super cheap collective energy deals. These offers are such great value, they aren't even available direct from the energy companies. Savvy customers have saved over £10 million from collective energy deals. Go to aspokesmansaid.com and you could be saving big money on your bills.
With aspokesmansaid.com. Fighting for you, saving you money.
If you're in business, I bet you hate wasting money. We Do Taxi Tops can help you achieve minimum wastage on your advertising costs and maximum exposure. Our revolutionary taxi tops can target your potential customers in the right place at the right time, so your message has the greatest potential for making an impact. We Do Taxi Tops. Visit wedooh.com. We Do. The smarter, quicker way of advertising in London, supporting London businesses of all sizes.
I love my brother. We do fun things like playing together. I like having hugs with Freddie. Freddie gives the best hugs. Freddie used to be very poorly, and the doctor said he might need a new liver. Then one day, a very nice person gave their liver to Freddie. It was amazing. We were so happy. Now he's around to give me more hugs than ever.
Tell your family you want to save lives. To find out more, visit organdonation.nhs.uk.
Love Sport Breakfast. Me, Richard Lee, Patrick Christys. We're here with you for 3 more hours, and golden 3 hours that await, Patrick.
Yeah.
Are you as excited as I am?
I'm pumped.
I mean, we're going to go into more detail. Of course, Spurs did lose 7-2, just in case you missed that. They lost 7-2, open brackets, S-E-V-E-N, close brackets 2, to Bayern Munich. So we're going to be talking more about that. We're going to be talking more about Mo Farah. There are of course, his disgraced former coach, Salazar. Lots of news about that at the moment. No doubt we'll get stuck into that. And in the next hour, we'll also be speaking to Connor Ashfield, West Brom Fan TV. They've gone top. In fact, they haven't gone top of the table. They lost to Leeds last night. They're no longer top of the table. We'll also be speaking to Matt Ford, who is a German football expert. You can get in touch on WhatsApp 0208 70 20 558 and on the socials at Love Sport Radio. 7 o'clock.
On digital radio, online, mobile, and smart speaker. This is Love Sport News.
From the Sky News Centre at 7. The Mail on Sunday says it'll vigorously defend itself after the Duke and Duchess of Sussex announced they're suing the paper. Prince Harry has spoken of the powerful forces that led to his mother's death also plaguing Meghan's life. He's furious the paper published a private letter sent by the Duchess. Harry issued a lengthy statement just hours after Meghan spoke happily about the couple's royal tour.
Being able to be in Africa and South Africa, it's my first time being in this country, has been really powerful, and Harry has continued on in a couple other countries. We're reuniting today, which I can't wait for. I miss him so much. No, I think for us it's just been a really special trip.
Boris Johnson is expected to reveal details of his final Brexit offer to the EU when he addresses his party conference later. The Prime Minister will tell Conservatives it's a fair and reasonable compromise to clinch a deal. There are warnings other airlines could follow Thomas Cook into liquidation because of growing pressure on the travel industry. A government review of aviation includes recommendations intended to ensure consumers and the taxpayer are protected. A teenager accused of throwing a 6-year-old boy from the 10th floor of the Tate Modern has been named. Restrictions banning the reporting of Jonty Bravery's name have been lifted on his 18th birthday. Manchester City made it 2 wins from 2 in the Champions League after they eased to a 2-0 win at home to Croatian side Dinamo Zagreb. Raheem Sterling and Phil Foden scored. Boss Pep Guardiola says he was delighted by the performance of his side.
It was good. We didn't concede one shot on target. Through our huge possession, we create enough chances to score earlier, but we were patient. We conceded a few set pieces. Yeah, and it was a good game.
Tottenham were thrashed 7-2 by Bayern Munich. And Adam Jamili suffered heartbreak at the World Athletics Championships last night. He finished 4th in the men's 200 metres final. That's the latest. I'm Anna Bates.
This is Love Sport.
For my whole life, I didn't know if I even really existed. But I do.
Joker is the film of the year, says Empire. An instant classic, says NME. The Guardian calls it gloriously daring.
People are starting to notice.
Total Film says Joaquin Phoenix is astonishing.
Send in the cloud. When you bring me out, can you introduce me as Joker?
Joker, in cinemas Friday. Book tickets now. Certificate 15.
Love Sport Radio. On digital radio, online, mobile and smart speaker. This is Love Sport Breakfast with Richard Lee and Patrick Christys.
Good morning, Love Sport Breakfast, Love Sport Radio, me Richard Lee, Patrick Christys and producer Kieran. Of course, we're here until 10 a.m. The main stories this morning, of course, there is only one main story in the football world. Bayern Munich won 7-2 against Tottenham at Tottenham last night. We'll be talking about that in more detail. And of course, Salazar, more and more information coming out in regards to Mo Farah's disgraced ex-coach. We'll be talking about that too. We'll also be talking about a new idea that we've come up with, which is Patrick Christys' Art Hour, which we're going to try and commission as a show.
Yeah, we are. So this is in light of the fact that Banksy has opened up a new shop, right? So obviously Banksy is this artist that no one really seems to know exactly who he is at all, Robert Del Nair. And so, yeah, strong rumours that he is indeed the front man of Massive Attack, of course, but we'll never know, will we, Robert? So Banksy's opened up a new art store in London, and it's a bit weird because it's basically full of stuff deliberately so ridiculous and no one would ever want to buy it. It's in Croydon, and also it never opens. So, yeah. And we were just chatting off air then a little bit about how totally pointless art is. So I went to the Tate recently. My girlfriend took me to the Tate and we had a massive row, like a huge row on the viewing gallery, because apparently I wasn't giving her the romantic day out that she'd hoped for. Right. Because in the Tate currently, and you can go in for free and view this, there's a reason why it's free, there's just a section that is just a bit of rope. Just a bit of rope on the floor. That's art. There's a room where it's completely pitched. Massive room, by the way. It's bigger. It is bigger than this office. Okay. So square, pounds per square metre. You imagine what that floor space is costing them. It's just a completely pitch black room with a really old colour television in the middle of it, playing like an old silent film.
Okay.
There was one where a woman had covered herself in feathers. And was moving around. That's not art. That's a breakdown.
We're going to get into this in a bit more detail shortly, because I think that there's something there, Patrick. But I do want to talk more about Spurs, of course, because this is very much the main story today. Of course, they did get beaten. I keep saying it was 7-2 last night. In fact, let's hear from Chris Waddle. He called Spurs a shambles.
I don't think Aurier, for me, I don't think he wants to be here. He tried to get away in the summer. They wouldn't sell him, got rid of Trippier instead. They should have bought Ray back and said, yeah, if you want to leave, you want to leave. There's too many, it's Spurs at the minute, there's too much going on. Whether it would be Ericsson, Alderweireld out of contract, so-and-so wants a new deal, Vertonghen wants a new deal. Is he signing, is he not? Is Thingy playing, is he not playing? And there's too much happened. This all should have been done as soon as the season was finished. Everything should have been put in place. What a stadium. Put some quality on there, full every week. Let's have a go at top 4 guarantee, but let's have a go at the league. it's just been a shambles, let's be honest, because you've got players who have not, Eriksen's coming on as a sub, Alderweireld's playing, but they're thinking, well, I might be going in January. I've only got a few more months. If I'm not, I'll be going cheap. If not, I'll wait at the end of the season. I'm going to get a free transfer. And it should, a club at this stature, I mean, they've got brilliant supporters, brilliant stadium. It's a great club. I was here 4 years. I loved it. It was brilliant. But you've got to say that it's a shambles at the minute, and they've got to sort it out quickly, because that squad, even though I'm saying the defence is not good enough, it's still good enough for the Premier League to finish top 4.
Not a word. No, sorry about that if you didn't understand any of that. But I think what he was saying was that Spurs are a bit of a shambles.
I got that.
Right now. Look, one of the issues is, of course, there are so many little subplots at Spurs at the moment. It's one of these brilliant box sets where each episode there's something different going on.
Yeah. So doesn't this go to just point out what a complete and utter fallacy it was to build that stadium? A folly, some would say, because the idea was you present players with the best stadium in the world, it attracts the best players in the world, and the players that you already have
Well, it
want to
did. It
stay.
attracted Bayern Munich last night.
Yeah, it did. Yeah. Lewandowski.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
You say looking around, it's got a mile-long bar. Anyway, but this is the point, isn't it? Which is that actually they've built this massive stadium at a huge cost that may well, have knock-on consequences for the transfer market going forward. And Christian Eriksen still wants to leave. Several other players still want to leave. Serge Aurier still wants to leave. Vertonghen's stalling over a new contract. You look at it and go, well, actually, wouldn't it have been better to just invest that money in the squad and then keep the best players that you've got already by introducing even better players and making them compete?
You mentioned Vertonghen there. He came in for quite a lot of criticism I've seen on social media last night. A few people suggesting that might be him done after that game yesterday. But as you mentioned, very much not the case. But there is a question mark about Alderweireld and Vertonghen because they were exposed by pace last night, which I guess that's a weakness. And that's going to be something that a lot of other teams will see and look to exploit.
Yeah, exactly. I think let's not just detract from how good Bayern Munich actually were, though. I mean, Bayern Munich was sensational. Every single time they touched the ball, it looked like they were going to score. In fact, most times they did. And Lewandowski, we all know his quality. The debate was before the game, who's better, him or Harry Kane? I think Robert Lewandowski. I think that's what I learnt last night. Serge Gnabry as well, 24 years old. Bear in mind, Tony Pulis couldn't find a place for him in his West Brom team. Scored 4 goals last night for Bayern Munich. Former Arsenal man as well. He then tweeted, "The city is red."
Yeah, well, North London
is red,
which is even more specific, and that will no doubt wind up a few Spurs fans. But he timed it perfectly, and he was, by the way, brilliant. The finishes, not just the goals, but just to touch on the goals, they were so clinical, every single one. Brilliant finishes. I know we touched on it earlier that Glenn Hoddle tried to question whether Hugo Lloris might have done more with the first. He couldn't. All 7 goals, I don't think Hugo Lloris had a chance. Yeah, clinical. German efficiency.
It was ruthless German efficiency, and the Bayern Munich players have stuck around, actually. In fact, they will have done it by now. A couple of hours ago, they're out on the pitch, putting their towels down on the sunbeds.
So, should Poch change his tactics? Back four can't afford to play that high, especially against pace. And this is another question mark from a lot of Spurs fans, is whether Poch got his tactics right.
Well, he obviously didn't, did he? They lost 7-2. But, I mean, this is the thing, is he not just doing the best with what he's got, I suppose? I mean, bear in mind, this is Group B now in the Champions League. Bayern Munich are top, 2 wins. Red Star, Olympiacos, and then Spurs. No, by no means is it all lost for Spurs, but it's certainly not going too well for them at the moment. I just wonder with Poch whether or not he feels limited. You know, with Klopp, where he developed year on year tactically, he kind of handpicked his players, and the whole shape of Liverpool's setup emerged. Pep Guardiola obviously brought a blueprint with him, and then built around it. With Poch, has there been any real progression? Has there been more of an identity now to the way that Spurs play? I'm not convinced there has.
So the Germans would have been very, very happy last night, no doubt, laughing all the way back to Germany.
No.
What do you mean, no?
They don't do that.
They don't, because we've discussed it. Well, no, actually they do. They've got a fantastic sense of humour. I know we touched on some German jokes before. I've got a German joke for you here. One more. Can a kangaroo jump higher than a house? Yes, because a house can't jump. One of the classic German jokes. They've got some brilliant ones. Some really good ones. Just one more. A man goes to the doctors and says, "Doctor, I poop every morning at 7. What should I do?" Doctor tells him not to worry. That's what most people would love to be that regular. But wait, the man says, "I wake up at 7:30.
Oh, he's got him.
The Germans do enjoy a good
They love to
joke.
laugh. They love to laugh.
On a positive, and genuine German jokes, by the way, on a positive, they could have been 4-1 up before Lewandowski's goal on the stroke at half-time. Is this the issue, the fragility with Spurs, in that they obviously have so many talented players? They can, when they go forward, they do look a threat, but it is the fact that they are so fragile, and the fact that they can go from 4-2 to 7-2 in a matter of minutes, 2-1 to 2-1 to 4-1 in a matter of minutes. It just seems like when they concede, they don't have that grit to then lock in and maybe hold tight for 10-15 minutes.
Yeah, it's a strange one, really, because last year, you look at that comeback against Manchester City, what a comeback that was. That showed raw cojones that Troy Deeney would have been proud of, just massive cojones. But last night, it was very much a submission job. And you think, well, does that indicate that maybe they've stopped playing for the manager? Because you do see Arsenal do it. You see Arsenal; they were always at risk. Once they'd gone 2 down early, you thought with Arsenal they had it in their locker for it to be 7 or 8. Yeah. And Spurs now look like that, don't they? And that, to me, was a sign that Arsene Wenger, legend that he was, maybe wasn't always as hard on his players as he could be. I think he could be the first to admit that, wouldn't he? He had a certain management style. And I think over a period of time, that probably got to the players a little bit, in the sense that there's not necessarily going to be massive hairdryer-style consequences if we do get thumped by 7-2. And that's what it felt like for Spurs last night. If a team was seriously worried about what their manager was going to say to them after the game, if they were really worried about the consequence of this, I don't think they'd have rolled over it in the way that they did.
No, a team we've barely mentioned, and the reason is that they got a victory as we expected they would, and it was a good victory. Of course, Man City winning last night, 2-0. Manager Pep Guardiola says he's so sorry for Phil Foden after he and Raheem Sterling came off the bench to score 2-0 in a win over Dynamo Zagreb. We can hear it from Pep Guardiola now.
I know, my friend, he deserves to play. I want to give him minutes. Every time I don't play, I am completely unfair to him. I'm sorry. But it's Kevin De Bruyne there, it's Gundogan there, it's David Silva, it's Bernardo, it's Rodri. It's what it is. I'm so sorry. So be patient. I know the best way to grow up is play minutes and minutes. But he's so young, and he will take, I don't know how many players in that age played the minutes in the past. In the recent past means 10, 20 years, it means he has played this last seasons with us, and he's going to be an incredible future player for us, because we count on them, we trust a lot of them, but he's what it is. So
it's too late, so I'm sorry, Pep. It's all good and well. You can apologise now, and I think he was genuine with that apology, but it's too late as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, Phil Foden is a precocious young talent. Scored yesterday in the 5th minute of added time. Sterling kind of spared Pep's blushes really on 66 minutes. City winning 2-0 over Dynamo Zagreb. They're top of their group now. Played 2-1-2. Shakhtar are just beneath them. Played 2-1-1, of course, and it's Zagreb and Atalanta below them. Yeah, Phil Foden, it's an odd one, because you look around and you see what's happening at Chelsea, what's happening at United, and all this now. But surely he is better placed to stay at City, train every day with the world-class talent there. And it's, look, when David Silva retires next season, or moves on next season, I should say, surely Phil Foden just steps in.
Well, as far as I'm concerned, I've just made this up. Patience is a virtue, I think, because certainly with Phil Foden...
You haven't made that up.
I just came up with that just then. It's quite good, though, isn't it?
All right, mate.
Yeah, so I think for Phil Foden, like you say, he's in the best environment he could possibly be. He is going to get minutes, as Pep Guardiola kept touching on there. He will get minutes. It might be more so European than league at the moment, because he did touch on some of the world-class players that he's got in front of him. But, of course, if you are training with those world-class players every day, he's going to get 25 games or so this season, one way or another, like I say, majority via cups. That's all right. That's okay. Yeah. Like, for where he is at the moment in his career, yeah, I know as an England fan and being English, we'd love for him to play 50 games this season and be a starring role. But that might be next season. And again, for me, that's okay.
But if you look at what's happening at United now, where youngsters are essentially just being given first team minutes without any real push for that place, it is literally a lottery. Like, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer just essentially goes to the under-18s with a large net, just hoovers them up and goes, right, you're starting. I mean, he gave Twanzebe, didn't he give Twanzebe the captain's armband the other day? I mean, for goodness sake. Yeah, against Rochdale. This lad is the captain. And it's just absolutely nuts. So surely it's better for Phil Foden, because when he does, and it is when, not if, he breaks into this first team, he will have earned that. Every single day he will have had to push for that, and he will be playing in a world-class team. And when you talk about standards and wanting to maintain those standards, surely he is the one who's going to be the world-class talent for England, because he's had to work so hard to get to where he is.
I think you make a good point.
That
Just a
never
quick word on Real Madrid last night. They drew 2-2 with Club Brugge. They were 2-0 down, came back to 2-2. Some pressure on Zidane there. The worst start to a Champions League campaign for quite some time, I believe. Poch, now favourite to be the next Premier League manager sacked. Does that surprise you?
Really? More than Steve Bruce and Marco Silva.
It's in big red letters in front of me. Now, if that isn't factual, then I don't know what is.
Wow.
16 minutes past 7.
I'd never be a vegetarian. I think that is a huge missed steak. Missed steak. So clever. So funny.
This is Love Sport.
Follow @LoveSportRadio on Twitter for all the latest news, views, competitions, and the best bits from your favourite station. Love Sport, the station giving fans a voice.
You all right, mate? Yeah, I'm fine. Yeah? Really? It's just, there's a massive grizzly bear sitting on you. You sure you're okay?
Well, now that you mention it, sometimes we say we're fine when we're not. But with 1 in 4 experiencing a mental health problem, if your mate says he's fine, he might not be. Be in your mate's corner and ask twice. Time to change.
Are you paying way over the odds for your car insurance? The spiralling costs put people off driving, full stop. But you're a careful driver, and realistically, you'll only need an insurance payout if some halfwit cuts you off on the M1. So you shouldn't be forced to pay massive car insurance premiums, and you don't have to. Go to price comparison site aspokesmansaid.com today and find out the best value car insurance deals on the market. Don't pay the price for not shopping around.
Spokesmansaid.com. Fighting for you, saving you money.
If you're in business, I bet you hate wasting money. We Do Taxi Tops can help you achieve minimum wastage on your advertising costs and maximum exposure. Our revolutionary taxi tops can target your potential customers in the right place at the right time, so your message has the greatest potential for making an impact. We Do Taxi Tops. Visit WEDOOH.com. We Do. The smarter, quicker way of advertising in London, supporting London businesses of all sizes.
If you're driving on a motorway and you see a red X sign overhead, you need to change lanes safely. Driving in a red X lane is an offence. Red X's are there for a reason, to protect you and others from danger. The lane may be blocked by a broken down vehicle or road workers, or the lane may be needed for the emergency services. So if you see a red X, change lanes safely. Highways England, connecting the country.
Love Sport.
Love Sport Breakfast. Me, Richard Lee, Patrick Christys here with you until 10 a.m. Lots to go through this morning. Of course, we will be talking more and more about the defeat last night for Spurs. They did lose 7-2. Man City successful, however, beating Dynamo Zagreb 2-0. Just want to go back to Salazar, and we've touched on it before, but of course big news at the moment, and Mo Farah is very much in the headlines. Mo Farah's ex-coach in the headlines even more so, been banned for 4 years for doping violations. There's lots of different takes on this in the paper, isn't there, Patrick?
There are, absolutely. Well, I say there's lots of different takes on it in the paper. There's kind of one large take, which is that the guy is a frothing cheat.
Salazar?
Yeah.
Yeah. Just to clarify.
Yeah, just Salazar.
Yeah.
So Salazar, the 61-year-old Cuban-born coach who fronted up Nike's Oregon project, has been banned from the sport for 4 years for doping violations, but now scrutiny is intensifying on Sir Mo Farah.
And it'll frustrate Mo, won't it? Because obviously people are going to put 2 and 2 together that, okay, he was okay until he started working with his coach, then suddenly had this incredible rise under the coaching.
It's remarkable, wasn't it?
It was, yeah. So, naturally, obviously, people will put 2 and 2 together, which must be really frustrating for Mo.
Yeah, put 2 and 2 together and make 5.
Yeah.
I think that's what Mo Farah's saying. His name's been dragged through the muck. So Alberto Salazar was using testosterone on athletes. He was apparently as well conducting tests with the aid of a doctor called Jeffrey Brown, who, he looks about as crooked as a witch's finger, doesn't he? He's also been banned for 4 years. They were testing to see what amount of banned performance-enhancing substances it would take to show up in an anti-doping test, which, let's be honest, is, just kind of says it all, really, doesn't it? He even tested on his own kids. to see what the results would be, and then emailed Lance Armstrong to say, Lance, call me ASAP. We've tested it and it's amazing. Lance Armstrong, of course, was, I mean, pumped full of so much stuff that it makes Pete Doherty look like a kind of half-time party animal, doesn't it? So, it's astonishing stuff, this, really. And the fact is that Mo Farah's name is now being dragged through the mud because Alberto Salazar was Mo Farah's coach for 7 years. And Farah stuck with him for 2 years after a BBC Panorama documentary essentially revealed what has now been confirmed by the World Athletics Association, which is that he was essentially doping. And, yeah, it just make you kind of scream, really, doesn't it? Because Nike is such a big multinational corporation. And there's such a fine line, isn't there, between... I think this is what happened, which is that Nike have pumped billions of pounds into this athletics programme, and they've given Alberto Salazar full reign. And they've just tried to mix science with athletics, obviously, but to the point where you create, the best athletes that the world's ever seen. And it's gone from things like having altitude chambers right next to the running track. When athletes would go and live at the Nike Oregon project, they would live in sealed rooms to simulate altitude training, all this stuff, the minutiae. Then, if you think about you doing all that, it's not such a massive leap, is it, to go from there to just giving someone a little bit of testosterone?
Okay, so then I suppose changing the subject slightly, but very much along the same lines, because this is, look, how often are we having this conversation about athletes, coaches in this case, that are going down this route? The Tour de France is riddled with it, and it's just, I don't know, at what point does it then not become fun anymore because you're watching and you don't know what you're watching anymore? Interestingly, and people often ask me, is there any issue in football? I don't know of an issue in football, and I think because of the type of game it is, with it being so skill-based, it hasn't been an issue. My worry is that it might become an issue because I think that in football, pace and power is becoming more and more needed if you're going to play at the very top level. So it'd be interesting to see whether this seeps into football, but I wonder whether that's one of the reasons why we do like football so much, in that we get the impression that more often than not, what we're watching is a fair fight. Whereas when we're watching athletics, it's not. Then it leads you to the argument, well, why doesn't it just get to the point where you say, well, do you know what, do whatever you want. Do whatever you want. There are no rules. Put your health at risk, put your life at risk if you want. And then actually, at least we know that they're all cheating. And then we're watching a fair fight again.
Well, look, I suppose the argument for that, and then the argument will be as well that, well, just whoever can afford all the, the latest medicines and the latest things will be the country that wins most at the Olympics, I suppose. But I mean, it is just bonkers. Look, how often is it realistically when you watch something and it looks a little bit too good to be true, and then now you're looking at it and going, well, it is too good to be true, isn't it? We used to think that about Lance Armstrong. How is this guy doing it? He's come back from cancer, testicular cancer. This is incredible. I can't believe my eyes. You can't believe your eyes. It wasn't real. And you're looking at a lot of these athletes now, and look, with the best one in the world, Mo Farah winning the 10,000 metres in London 2012, fantastic. And then Garland Roop, who was behind him, the American athlete, Garland Roop, who I think it's worth mentioning was not necessarily, didn't appear to be the type of person that would normally finish second at an Olympic long-distance event. Almost matching Mo Farah stride for stride. He was his training partner under Salazar at the Nike Oregon project. And it is important to stress at this point that, look, there is no indication whatsoever that either of these two athletes have ever doped. Have a look at it, though.
Okay. Well, look, what do you guys think? 0208 70 20 558 on that one. Just want to talk a little bit of Championship because there were a full list of fixtures last night. Of course, Leeds went top of the table once again. A good win for them. In fact, a big win for them against West Brom.
Yeah, sorry, it's just some of this on... I know you're going to go see some of the football results, but I've just had this image now of Salazar's kids, right? Because Salazar tested a lot of this stuff on his kids, which I think is fantastic. Even things like L-carnitine, which is converting fat into energy. But you just got this image of going round to Salazar's house and, like, he just opens a door and inside there's just two massive hutches. With like a little bit of straw at the bottom, like a watering bottle. There's just two of his kids sat in there. It's like, all right, how's it going? Yeah, good.
Yeah, he's not faring so well, that one.
Yeah. Yeah. His one's got like a nasty rash.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The other one is pumped up.
Just ripped.
3-year-old, absolutely ripped. Yeah, it's all natural. But Championship. Obviously, it was a full list of fixtures last night. Leeds have gone back top of the table. West Brom suffered their first defeat of the season. Leeds on 20 points, West Brom 19. It's really tightly congested up there. You've actually got QPR in 10th on 16 points. Leeds top on 20 points. Only 4 points separating the top 10 places. It's so good to see a league that's so competitive.
It really is. And I think actually as well, it's this kind of trickle-down effect, isn't it, of football in this country where, okay, a lot of the power and money is concentrated in the top of the Premier League, but you look at that Championship now and there's so many like historically brilliant clubs in there and Stoke, and you think, this is magnificent.
Well, I got a question for you, Patrick. Have you ever gambled lives?
I've played roulette with a few lives, mate, yeah.
Okay, well, someone else who has is Nathan Jones.
I know you said before the game that this will, no matter what happens, be a steep learning curve for you. I just wondered, do you feel you could have done the thing more up to this point?
Possibly, I would have made different decisions along the way. I would have put different people on a penalty when they're doing, or I would have, I would have. It's a learning curve, and look, the thing I'm sad about is because this is a wonderful club. I left a wonderful club, a wonderful group of people that were really on the way up, and I gambled everything, and it hasn't paid off. And I gambled with other people's lives as well, my staff's lives, my wife's life, and things. And that's the thing for me that's really hurting, because I'd worked so hard to get to a certain position, and then look, it just hasn't worked out. But that's football, and I came to a wonderful club, wonderful owners. I can't thank them enough. The fans have given me patience, but I haven't repaid them.
Yeah, I mean, but I've always said it, when you're surrounded by betting adverts all day, every day, as you are in football, probably their sponsors as well, and you just think it is only a matter of time, isn't it, before you do gamble with your wife.
There you go.
Oh, I'm out of cash. I've got rid of the boat. Right, okay.
I'll put her on red.
Yeah, I'll put the wife on red.
Right, it was not such a good night for West Brom, although reasonable performance in fairness. Delighted to say we got Connor Ashfield on the line, West Brom Fan TV. Morning, Connor.
Morning, how are you?
Morning. Yeah, good, thanks. I actually watched this game, so while everyone else was watching Spurs get demolished last night, I did watch this game, and it was a really interesting game. Obviously, arguably the two standout teams in the division going head-to-head. I think for me, Leeds edged it. Keen to get your thoughts. Oh, I think we've lost Connor. Hopefully we'll get Connor back. There we go. Got you now, Connor. Yeah, Connor, keen to get your thoughts on the game last night.
First half, I thought Leeds did edge it. There wasn't really that many chances in the game. First half, obviously, Johnston kept us in the game, that double save from him. But I thought second half, I did think that we edged it. I think, we just lacked that final touch. The link-up play, I thought Pereira last night was outstanding for us. The link-up play with some of our players was phenomenal, but like I say, we just don't have that clinical striker like we did last year in Dwight Dale. And I feel like if we had a better striker, we could have come away with at least a point. I think both teams, like you said, are the standout teams. And I think it was a good advert last night for the Championship.
Well, I think I suppose that was going to be my question. You look at the likes of Romain Sawyers, who's come in, and a couple of others who look like they're the real deal, certainly. But are they missing that? Is that what will be costly, do you think, at the end of the season? Because at the moment, that's probably the toughest fixture on the fixture list, going away to Leeds. And it was a tight game, as you mentioned. Certainly second half might have swung back in West Brom's favour. So with that being the toughest game, do you feel they've got enough as it stands to get a top two finish?
Well, I feel like we've compensated in other areas. We might not be as strong up top, but I certainly feel like we've definitely improved in the middle. Obviously, Romain Sawyers coming in, Pereira, Kravinovic, Dejan Garner from West Ham as well, who's chipped in with a lot of goals. We didn't have that last year. We had Harvey Barnes, and then we lost him 10, 11 games in. So we did lose that last season. We've definitely improved in midfield. We haven't really got any better up front. But I do feel like we've kind of balanced it with our midfield. And who knows, in January we could potentially bring in another striker. Yeah. I also feel like Charlie Austin as well. I think when he gets a goal under his belt, I do feel like they'll keep coming. Unfortunately, they just haven't come yet.
Yeah, just a quick word on Slaven Bilic. Obviously, I guess so far so good. The West Brom fans really taken to him?
Yeah, he's a really good manager. Obviously, we had Darren Moore. I didn't agree with him being sacked. But now you actually look at what Bilic has done. We see him a lot more, organised. We see him a lot more of a unit. Okay, we've only kept one clean sheet this season, but I think that's really due to us being so attacking. Like I say, with a manager like Bilic, I feel like he's one of the best managers in the league. I feel like he's got that. I don't know what it is about him. He just knows how to organise us a lot better than Darren Moore did and Jimmy Shan. And it's nice to see some free-flowing attacking football for once at the club.
Yeah, great stuff. Connor, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
That's Connor Ashfield there, West Brom Fan TV. But it was an interesting night. Just to touch quickly on Stoke, we mentioned the talk, and you're talking about gambling with lives making the usual jokes that you do. Classic Patrick Christie jokes. I mean, it was a resignation speech, wasn't it? He hasn't officially been sacked yet, as far as I can see, but the way in which he's given that talk, to me, that was look, I thank everyone. You've given me a great chance. Yeah. It hasn't worked out. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's like the opposite of an Oscars acceptance speech, wasn't it?
Yes, exactly.
It thanked everyone and then ended on a really miserable note. Although, actually, having watched Meryl Streep collect a couple of those awards in my time, I think it was pretty par for the course. But anyway, yeah. So no, it was. It's hard to watch, actually.
It is sad because the truth is, and I know this from close sources. He is very good in terms of as a coach. He did brilliantly at Luton. He's well liked. There's a lot of positive, but then you look, and I suppose this is where football is. Luck does play a part, because have Stoke been 2 points out of 10 games in terms of how they played? No, they've actually played quite well at times, but individual errors. In fact, Jack Butland was dropped last night. Adam Federici came in goal. Individual errors have cost them. They've made more individual errors than any other team in the division. They've never quite got on that run of form, which you feel had they got a win or two, maybe they'd have got that belief. We've seen it with several other teams this season, and maybe they're sat mid-table now and he's not under pressure, but unfortunately it hasn't worked out.
Yeah, exactly. Shoulda, woulda, coulda, right? Do you think it's just a bit of a lesson that maybe the grass isn't always greener on the other side? Because obviously he's doing exceptionally well at Luton, and also at Luton as well. He's got an international airport there. He's got a vibrant local community, a multicultural local community, to say the least. He's within kind of spitting distance of London, the bustling metropolis that is, the finest city in the world. And then you leave all that and you go to Stoke.
I don't know if you've been to Luton, but there's not much green grass.
No, but there certainly isn't in Stoke.
True. 27 minutes to 8.
Love sport.
Get ready for Brexit on the 31st of October. This means that travelling to the EU will change. You'll need to check online if your passport is valid for travel to Europe. If you're planning on driving, you'll need to check if you have the right documents to drive. And make sure your travel insurance covers all your healthcare needs. To keep your trip on track, check what you need to do at gov.uk/Brexit. Get ready for Brexit on the 31st of October.
Home insurance is vital. You don't want to end up paying through the nose when something goes wrong. But are you being charged way too much for your home cover? Are your insurance premiums simply too much to bear? It doesn't have to be that way. A spokesmansaid.com is a price comparison website that trawls the internet to find the best deal for you. Don't pay the price for not shopping around. Visit a spokesmansaid.com and start saving today.
spokesmansaid.com. Fighting for you, saving you money.
If you're in business, I bet you hate wasting money. We Do Taxi Tops can help you achieve minimum wastage on your advertising costs and maximum exposure. Our revolutionary taxi tops can target your potential customers in the right place at the right time, so your message has the greatest potential for making an impact. We Do Taxi Tops. Visit wedooh.com. We Do. The smarter, quicker way of advertising in London, supporting London businesses of all sizes.
My mum and dad say that I don't need lots of sugar. I'm sweet enough already. So we used the Change for Life food scanner app to find out how much sugar is in our food and drink. It's surprising how much we found. So I put my detective hat on to find the healthier choices. Woohoo! Found one, Mum! You can be food smart too. Download the free Change for Life food scanner app today.
This is Love Sport.
Lots for breakfast. Me, Richard Lee, Patrick Christys here with you until 10 a.m. Of course, lots to get through this morning. It was a successful night last night for Man City. They won 2-0 in the Champions League. Not such a good night for Spurs. We're going to get into that in more detail very shortly. Salazar, the ex-coach of Mo Farah, is coming in for even more criticism today. Again, we'll be touching on that in more detail very shortly too. But I do want to speak about this Spurs result in a bit more detail. Of course, 7-2 to Bayern. I'm delighted to say we've got Matt Ford, German football expert, on the line. Morning, Matt.
Good morning.
Morning. This was a lesson in German efficiency last night.
Yeah, that's one way of putting it.
Yeah.
Some of the headline makers over here have chosen different words. They've gone for Oktoberfest in North London. That's one of the ways they're putting it this morning.
It was incredible, though, watching it, talk about clinical finishing and obviously Lewandowski getting headlines, Gnabry getting headlines as well. It was incredible to watch. As much as we can talk about Spurs and the deficiencies and the fact that they did capitulate, from Bayern Munich's point of view, what a performance this was.
Yeah, I think a bit of a watershed performance for Bayern Munich, for Niko Kovac, for Serge Gnabry, for Robert Lewandowski, for Joshua Kimmich. The list of names goes on. There's quite a few angles that we can look at this from a Bayern point of view. Obviously, Serge Gnabry is going to take all the headlines. He'll be well known to Premier League fans as a player who didn't quite make the grade at West Brom or at Arsenal, but he certainly proved himself to be, to look like a potential replacement long term for Arjen Robben in Munich. 10 goals and 7 assists last year, and obviously he's already become a key man for Bayern this year.
Why is that? Why do you think it is that he couldn't fit in under Tony Pulis and co in the Premier League, and why he's been able to do it on obviously one of the biggest stages in world football at Bayern?
I think it often comes down to the fact that benefits quite a lot of young players trying to make their mark in the Bundesliga, in that he actually gets games, and even going back 2-3 years now, he was getting games. Bayern Munich knew that Arjen Robben and Frank Ribery were moving on at some point. They were getting older, and they knew they needed replacements. And Serge Gnabry was given his chance, and he's grown into the role. He's, like I said, he's a Bayern lineup without Serge Gnabry is pretty much unthinkable these days, and it's really taken the pressure off Robert Lewandowski, who for periods last season and also at the start of this season has looked like, it's looked a bit like Bayern, a bit over-reliant on him, but they certainly proved last night that they've got more options than just him.
Just want to touch on Coutinho. Fantastic touch for I want to say it was a 5th or 6th or 7th, who knows what goal it was, but a beautiful touch for that goal. How's he fitting so far?
Yeah, from game to game, getting stronger and stronger. He actually set up Serge Gnabry for Bayern's first goal against Paderborn at the weekend. If you've not seen that, a beautiful little lofted through ball into Gnabry's path. Stronger and stronger. The way he's settled in has actually said quite a lot about Niko Kovac's tactical development as a coach as well. He came with a relatively sort of stubborn and sensible reputation for Eintracht Frankfurt, but in having Coutinho there in that Bayern lineup, it's seen his Bayern team play with a lot more freedom, creativity, and they're looking a lot more flexible and more creative and watchable up front. And I think Coutinho is a large part of that.
Despite being 2-1 up at half time, Kovac brought on Thiago for Alaba at the break. Did that change the game?
It was partly injury inspired, but like I said, I think again it's another example of how Kovac is improving slowly but surely tactically. He recognised that Bayern was struggling with Spurs pressing in the first 20 minutes, half an hour. I actually thought it could be a difficult night for Bayern Munich if we think back to those opening 15-20 minutes, which seems a lifetime ago now. Moving Kimmich back to right back and bringing on Thiago in midfield certainly shored up that midfield a little bit more, and they took control from there, didn't they? Really impressive.
Just want to touch on a couple of the results elsewhere. Of course, Juventus beat Bayer Leverkusen 3-0 yesterday. Reasonably comfortable for Juventus from what I read.
Yeah, I've not had a chance to look at the game, properly, but I believe once again, I think Leverkusen actually had more possession, which has been the case in a lot of Bundesliga games for them this season. That's what Peter Bosz is trying to do with them. Whether it's actually enough to win on the very biggest stage against the very best opponents, where we saw last night, that's probably not the case yet. But Bayer Leverkusen are making slight progress under Peter Bosz.
I want to touch on Dortmund as well, because I know they're struggling at the moment. 2-2 draw against Werder Bremen. They're 7th as it stands, and also ex-Huddersfield manager David Wagner doing a good job at Schalke.
Yeah, it's not been very often in the past couple of years that you can say that Schalke are doing slightly better than Borussia Dortmund at the moment. Borussia Dortmund coming off the back of consecutive 2-2 draws against Frankfurt and Bremen. They play Slavia Prague away this evening. The one word you're not allowed to mention in Dortmund at the moment is the word mentality. Marco Reus was asked about that a couple of weeks ago. It's like, is the reason you keep throwing games away is it your mentality? And he was not happy at being asked that question at all. Seems to be no question with mentality though on the other side of the Ruhr Valley. Like you said, David Wagner really settling in at Schalke. They had another watershed result at the weekend, 3-1 win away at RB Leipzig. Certainly one of their most impressive performances in years. And David Wagner, settling in well.
Fantastic, Matt. Appreciate you joining us.
No problem.
Great stuff. Matt Ford, their German football expert, going through the games last night. Of course, if you missed it, Bayern Munich did beat Spurs 7-2. I keep repeating it because it is... Do you know what? Every now and then you get one of these results. Man United beating Arsenal 8-2, for instance, and obviously this last night, where it's... If someone had said beforehand, we were doing predictions, for instance, yesterday as to what the score would be, nobody ever says that scoreline. You know, it's just not a realistic between two top teams. And, of course, certain things happen for this to be the case. But it's not... I don't know, it's not something you comprehend before a game.
No, not at all. And I think as well the fact that Spurs conceded 3 goals in the last few minutes of the game as well is a real indication of how quickly they've thrown the towel in there, in the sense of the second that they as a group clearly decided that they just wanted to get off the pitch. You know, that's fine. I can understand that, and everyone has a bad night, but to go and ship 3 goals in the last few minutes is a complete capitulation.
Well, that is, like you say, where you throw the towel. That's one of the most frustrating things for a manager, because it's more the fact... Look, this finishes 4-2. We're still asking questions. But
do you think they want him out? Do you think the players want Poch out?
I mean, is that a sign that they do? Sometimes it can be. I don't think it's ever a conscious thing, because bear in mind that every player has personal pride over their performance, because it's, well, ultimately, they throw the towel in, it affects them long term. So I don't think any player would purposefully on the pitch stop trying because they're thinking, oh, this might get our manager sacked. But that, for me, is a big indication, the last few minutes, is a big indication that something isn't right. I mean... We look earlier in the season, they actually had a good first couple of games. Obviously, they beat Villa, didn't they? And then they drew away at Man City. And people are, at that point, it's great, it's great, it's great. But then when you delve into it and you dig into it, they didn't deserve to get that draw against Man City. And I think even the most hardened Spurs fan will admit that. It was one of those games that went their way. And you wonder whether actually, are we papering over the cracks? Yes, they made a European final. They'd started the season reasonably well. But all of a sudden, at some point, your luck will run out. At some point, you can't play poorly and continue to get the results that you deserve. And I think that the fact that it is 17 defeats in 36 games, actually consider that, 17 defeats in 36 games, not far off relegation form, which for a team that have ambitions of finishing top, genuinely, realistically top 4, at the moment, they've got some serious problems.
They do indeed. Now, look, a little bit later on, well, very shortly, actually, we're going to be hearing from a sports science and medical expert on the whole Alberto Salazar, Mo Farah story, just in case you've missed this. Alberto Salazar, one of the top coaches in world athletics, has been banned for 4 years. He was Mo Farah's coach for 7 years, between 2010 and 2017, at the Nike Oregon Project. He has been banned over drugs violations, doping violations. There's a lot to get stuck into there. But I just want to deal with the topic that's just on the front very quickly. And that is that furious Prince Harry has hit out at the, quote, bullying of Meghan. And it's emerged that they're going to press charges, or are pressing charges anyway, trying to, for the Mail on Sunday, after it published a, again, quotes, private letter between her and her father. Now... my understanding of this letter is that her father gave it to the paper, and therefore it's fair. I mean, look, but I obviously deal quite a lot in political journalism. Like, leaks are leaks. It happens. They get made public and, like, dry your eyes. Basically, it's happened. So I'm not sure I personally agree with this. But yeah, Prince Harry has launched an unprecedented and debatably ill-advised attack on the press, saying that it's tantamount to bullying the way they've gone after, and they don't realise the real human consequences, and that he has had to witness firsthand those consequences. It opens up an interesting debate, this, because what is the royal family's, or Harry's and Meghan's, right to privacy? Because they don't want privacy when Meghan has a press conference to launch a new fashion range. They don't want privacy when Meghan gets the gig to put the front cover of Vogue up. They didn't want privacy at their wedding, which cost the taxpayer a huge amount of money. They do want privacy at their Frogmore Cottage home, which cost us several £1 million in order to convert that into a secure, sprawling estate, essentially. So, do we not have the right to report information such as when her father goes to the British media and gives them a letter? I think it's this interesting debate of you can't really have it both ways. We all only ever want positive stuff in our life. We all only ever want, if we're ever in the papers, for it to be a load of people sitting around saying how brilliant we are. But that is not the rules of the game, unfortunately. And I think it's a little bit naive from Prince Harry for this, because they do get a lot of good press. And there was a statement in what he said there, which is that he basically says in it that there is a human cost to this relentless propaganda, specifically when it's knowingly false and malicious. And this is the key phrase for me. And though we have continued to put on a brave face, as so many of you can relate to, I cannot begin to describe how painful it has been. Now, that to me is a bloke who's writing a letter that's essentially addressed to his celebrity mates. As so many of you can relate to, putting on a brave face. For me, that just what I took from that is he's referring to his celebrity mates that have to deal with a lot of negative press. I could be wrong. That's kind of what I took from it anyway. I think that they're getting this really badly wrong, and you lose your right to privacy when, within reason, when you are trying to piggyback off the back of your popularity and media attention in order to line your own pockets, often at the taxpayer's expense.
13 minutes to wait.
An actor, a journalist, and a comedian walk into a bar, and they're all whining about Donald Trump.
Giving your team a voice. Love Sport Radio.
You all right, mate?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Yeah? Really? It's just there's a massive grizzly bear sitting on you. You sure you're okay?
Well, now that you mention it. Sometimes we say we're fine when we're not. But with 1 in 4 experiencing a mental health problem, if your mate says he's fine, he might not be. Be in your mate's corner and ask twice. Time to change.
If you're in business, I bet you hate wasting money. We Do Taxi Tops can help you achieve minimum wastage on your advertising costs and maximum exposure. Our revolutionary taxi tops can target your potential customers in the right place at the right time, so your message has the greatest potential for making an impact. We Do Taxi Tops. Visit WEDOOH.com. We Do. The smarter, quicker way of advertising in London, supporting London businesses of all sizes.
Driving too close to the car in front gives you less time to react. You may not realise that you're tailgating. Leave a 2-second gap between you and the vehicle in front. When it's wet, leave a 4-second gap. By staying back, you give yourself time to react. Stay safe. Stay back. Highways England, connecting the country.
How are you? How are you really? Modern life can be busy, and sometimes it's easier to look after others before looking after yourself. But there's only one you. And making small changes to your lifestyle now could improve your chances of staying healthier longer. So take the first step to a healthier you with our free How Are You quiz. See how you score and get personalised tips and support. From how to eat a little healthier to turning a 10-minute walk into exercise. Just search 1U.
This is Love Sport.
Lots for breakfast. Me, Richard Lee, Patrick Christys here with you until 10. The sports scientist that Johnny Burrow and Steve Thompson spoke to yesterday on Love Sport Drive was Ross Tucker, who gave a detailed insight into what doping regulations Salazar broke.
So in the world that Salazar inhabits, which is distance runners, it's a little bit different from what people may have heard of before, because testosterone is one of the anabolic steroids, which most people would think is synonymous with, say, 100-meter sprinters or power lifters, bodybuilders. But a distance runner also gets benefit because the drug would help them recover. And so the main challenge, obviously, for a long-distance runner is, can you do the volume and the intensity of training that's required in order to achieve performance, but also stay beneath some physiological ceiling at which your body starts to break down. So a lot of endurance athletes have used testosterone to help them improve their recovery, and that allows them to train harder, say 5 or 6 days a week instead of 4, and that obviously has benefits for performance.
And of course, there are no allegations against Sir Mo Farah, no reason to believe that he's done anything illegal, but we do know he took an infusion of L-carnitine before the 2014 London Marathon. Tell us a little bit about that substance. What is it primarily used for?
So L-carnitine is an interesting one because it's available as a supplement. Any one of your listeners could walk into a supplement shop or pharmacy and they'd be able to walk out with it in tablet form. And the theory has long been that if you take L-carnitine, it'll improve performance because it's involved in fat metabolism. Now, I'm not going to go into the specific biochemistry of that now, but
you'd lose me quite quickly.
Sorry?
You'd lose me quite quickly if you did.
Yeah, I may get lost myself. So L-carnitine is a substance in the, well, it functions in the metabolism of fat in the body. And so again, for an endurance athlete, if you can improve how well that person uses fat, then performance stands to improve. The trouble, as is reported in this report that's come out overnight, is that Salazar was impatient to use the supplement that's available commercially because it takes a long time, in theory, to have benefits and may not even help at all. And so what he then is alleged to have done, and found guilty of doing, is infusing it. And the problem there is that the anti-doping agencies only allow you to infuse certain volumes over certain time periods. Otherwise, it becomes a doping offense. So in that instance, the transgression is less about the L-carnitine and more about the fact that he's infusing it. And one of the first revelations that triggered all this is one of his former coaches accused him of using him effectively as a guinea pig. And they would pump this guy full of a liter full of this L-carnitine stuff. And they even were in contact with Lance Armstrong saying that when you do that, when you put a liter of L-carnitine into a person within an hour or 4 hours, they say the effects are miraculous, unbelievable benefits. And so that's then what he is alleged to have done with other athletes. As you mentioned in asking the question, none of it has stuck to any of the big name athletes.
It does sound to the non-expert ear that there is an element of the Dr. Frankensteins about this, frankly, the kind of looking at what can be done with the human body, how much L-carnitine can you use, for example. I know that the limit is supposedly 60 millilitres every 6 hours. He was upping it in the case of that particular experiment to once an hour. And it all sounds rather ominous. Can any of the things that he's said to have done be dangerous for the athletes taking them? Was he actually putting these people at risk?
I honestly don't know. The default is to say yes, of course, because when you infuse a drug at those dosages and you don't know, not necessarily even a drug, even a substance like L-carnitine, and you don't know what the potential consequences are, then you are taking risks. But as you said in asking it, there's really an element, two things jump out. One is that they are very meticulous and careful about seeing how much can we get away with. You know, the testosterone stuff, he in his defense, he argued that he wanted to test how much testosterone it would take to trigger a positive because he says they were scared of sabotage. Now, that's to me ridiculous because even if you could confirm in your own experiments how much testosterone it would take before you fail the test, that's not going to help you in the case of someone sabotaging you. It's a theoretical argument. It's useless to him. The other thing they're doing is they're trying to figure out what works. And so the combination of trying to figure out what works and what we can get away with is very nefarious and malicious sounding. It really does sound like that. And they were taking risks with athletes' health. The allegations include that he would tell athletes to take thyroid hormones, for instance. Now, those are very powerful drugs that are normally given by a doctor under prescription for people who very importantly need them. Salazar was playing doctor with people who didn't even need them. And of course, there have to be consequences to that. So the things that he's alleged to have done are very serious. And they're serious because they are, I mean, effectively, you've got a coach who is playing doctor with healthy athletes and turning them into patients for the sake of performance.
Well, the thing is, as well, when you look at it, it's all about winning, isn't it? As soon as you get medals or you get money up there, you're always going to get certain athletes that will go, I need this. This is what I need to do. And you'll always get your mad scientists that are always looking at, you know, like you said, they might not be looking at them as a human being. They're there as a new Formula One car that they can tinker with to try and get them to the best and just to push those boundaries. And, you know, I can never actually see this stopping moving forwards.
No, it's not going to, and that's the depressing reality because so many of the things that are used nowadays are not even testable. So they will rationalize it to themselves and say we're not cheating because if we got caught with this, it's not even an offense. thyroid hormone, for instance, the one that he was giving the athletes, is not banned. It's grossly unethical, and it is cheating, but it's not illegal. So that's the world that we live in now, is that especially when you consider that we know other athletes are doping. You look at the drip feed, one after the next, of positive tests coming out. So you're an elite athlete and you're saying, I don't want to be left behind. There's a way that I can keep up. I've got a compliant doctor and I've got a compliant coach. And that's what this decision has revealed, is there's a partnership between a coach and a doctor, and they are willing to do what it takes to make the athlete go faster. And now you have to interpret that. You interpret every other performance against that background now.
I could always remember sitting down with the lads when we were just having time, having a coffee and things like that, and we'd always talk about, the drugs in sport and athletics and stuff. And the one thing we always came up with, well, people are always going to do it. It's like the Tour de France. People are always going to do it. Why don't we do a natural one and then a drug Olympics? So people can get it out there and go, right, yep, I just want to push my body. I'm willing to do whatever it takes to get there. And others to say, I don't believe in that. Let's just go there and natural. I know people talk about sponsorship and things like that, but surely that would get rid of it as well.
Well, if there was a World Cup on the go right now for definitely clean athletes and definitely doped athletes, which one do you think people would watch?
Well, it's hard to say, because sometimes when you do see it, you're a bit like, you do want to see the natural athletes, what the body can do, but then also there is that point of, actually, how fast can someone run? It doesn't matter what they put inside them. Let's just see how fast they can run or how high they can jump and things like that. But people are starting to get a little bit sick of it as well, I think, of people doping and people pushing the boundaries and going a little bit too far.
Yeah, so I guess two things. One is there space in the calendar for 2 events? Imagine 2 of everything. And then the second thing is, if you could guarantee that the earnings, the prize money, this prestige was the same in both, how would you stop people coming from the dirty one into the clean one? Because the incentive would not change. It would still be there. Because I could earn.
This is Love Sport.
Get ready for Brexit on the 31st of October. Brexit will bring changes that affect businesses in many ways, particularly if you buy from EU suppliers, sell to EU customers, provide services to EU clients, and receive customer data from other businesses in the EU. Businesses need to prepare. Find out how at gov.uk/Brexit. Get ready for Brexit on the 31st of October.
Hi, I'm Barry. I'm a retired school bursar from Chingford. I thought I was paying too much for my energy and went onto a spokesmansaid.com and found that I could reduce my costs overall by £568 per annum, and I'm very grateful for that help.
With a spokesmansaid.com. Fighting for you, saving you money.
If you're in business, I bet you hate wasting money. We Do Taxi Tops can help you achieve minimum wastage on your advertising costs and maximum exposure. Our revolutionary taxi tops can target your potential customers in the right place at the right time, so your message has the greatest potential for making an impact. We Do Taxi Tops. Visit WEDOOH.com. We Do. The smarter, quicker way of advertising in London, supporting London businesses of all sizes.
You probably think you're pretty good at multitasking behind the wheel. I mean, you have to multitask to drive. So what's wrong with checking your phone? The thing is, your brain simply doesn't work. Even a quick look at a message, or firing off a quick reply, affects your concentration and makes you less able to react to hazards. If you use a mobile phone while driving, you're 4 times more likely to crash. Think. Put your phone away.
Love Sport Breakfast. Me, Richard Lee, Patrick Christys here with you until 10. We are online, digital radio and your Alexa smart speaker. You can get in touch on WhatsApp 0208 70 20 558. Get in contact via Facebook, Twitter or Instagram at Love Sport Radio. Loads to come on today's show. We're going to be speaking to Ian Dunn, ex-Huddersfield. Of course, they did get a victory, their first victory last night against Stoke, beleaguered Stoke, who are still on 2 points after 10 games. We're going to be speaking to Gary Mabbott, of course. Spurs were defeated 7-2. Really interested to see what Gary Mabbott made of that. Sam Parkin as well, our EFL expert, will be on the line, and loads more too. It's 8 o'clock.
On digital radio, online, mobile and smart speaker.
This is Love Sport News.
from the Sky News Centre at 8. The Duke and Duchess of Sussex are beginning the final day of their Africa tour, overshadowed by Harry's attack on the press. The couple is suing the Mail on Sunday. Prince Harry has accused newspapers of publishing lie after lie and claims powerful forces which caused his mother's death are now plaguing Meghan. Royal commentator Victoria Murphy is not sure about that.
Diana had an abundance of coverage, but she was also physically pursued as well, and that's not happening with Meghan. She's not being literally chased by photographers. But I think this statement reveals that, to Harry's mind, the type of coverage, it's tantamount to a similar thing.
Boris Johnson will set out his final offer for a new Brexit deal later, insisting it's a fair and reasonable compromise. He'll give details in his speech to the Conservative Party conference before the proposal is presented to EU officials in Brussels. North Korea's neighbours are investigating whether it's fired missiles from a submarine. The tests are being condemned by Japan's president. Tesco's chief executive is stepping down. The supermarket announced Dave Lewis will leave the business next summer. In sport, a difficult start to the season for Tottenham continued with a humiliating 7-2 defeat to Bayern Munich in the Champions League last night. It's the first time the club has ever conceded that many goals in a home match in any competition. Spurs boss Maurizio Pochettino says he always knew this campaign would be tricky following their loss to Liverpool in June.
For me, after the final of Champions League, was a chapter closed. And now the club is in a period that they need to open another chapter and design a project.
Elsewhere, Manchester City beat Dinamo Zagreb 2-0. And Lord Sugar says he thinks he will max out on starring in The Apprentice after 20 years. The entrepreneur, who will mark his 15th year on the show when it returns to our screens tonight, believes after 2 decades it will have run its course. That's the latest. I'm Anna Bates.
Love sport.
Hey phone, connect to Wi-Fi.
Connecting to cybercriminals.
You're not listening. I said Wi-Fi.
I'm listening. Cybercriminals could be too. Using Wi-Fi could leave your personal data exposed.
How can I keep it private?
With a secure VPN that encrypts your data, you need new Norton 360. It has multiple layers of protection, including VPN, device security, password manager, and more.
Ooh.
Go to uk.norton.com to get all-in-one protection starting at $24.99 for your first year. Terms apply. That's uk.norton.com.
Love Sport Radio. On digital radio, online, mobile, and smart speaker. This is Love Sport Breakfast with Richard Lee and Patrick Christys.
Morning, Love Sport Breakfast. Me, Richard Lee, Patrick Christys here with you until 10 a.m. Let's go through a few of those main headlines this morning. First and foremost, Tottenham Hotspur were defeated 7-2 last night by Bayern Munich. Also, Salazar is in the news again. Of course, the disgraced coach, ex-coach of Mo Farah, who's been given a 4-year doping ban, will be getting stuck into that. And it was a good night for Man City. They won 2-0 against Dinamo Zagreb. We've hardly spoke about that, have we, Patrick? I think the fact that it was a solid victory, and there's far more to talk about in regards to Spurs. I actually want to get stuck straight into Spurs again because I was just given a very interesting stat from our main man, Mr. Kieran Wellington, our producer.
The guy.
Do you know the expected goals? You know the expected goals. It's quite the thing at the moment. The expected goals for Bayern Munich last night.
So what, is this before the game? What, some kind of boffin with a laptop predicts how many goals are going to score?
No, after the game. So basically what happens, this is where the expected goals come from, is they will then assess every single shot that is taken towards goal and that gets given a score. So say, for instance, you had a shot from 1 yard out with an open goal where your expected goal would probably be 1.0 because you are expected to score from 1 yard out with an open goal. Whereas if you had a shot from 40 yards, they would then base it on thousands of shots that have happened before from that particular position and give you a particular score. So your expected chance of scoring from 40 yards might be 1%. So you'll be given a score of 0.01.
Okay.
So at the end of the game, ordinarily, they shot on Match of the Day, for instance, and it might be that a team wins 3-1 and the expected goals say that actually it should have been 2-1. For instance, based on this stat. Yesterday, it was the biggest difference they've ever seen between the expected goals and the actual number of goals scored. So basically, according to these stats, Bayern Munich yesterday should have scored 1.36 goals, But this then goes back to the point you made, just how clinical they were with their finishes. On another night, that might have been a game that finishes 2-2. And I guess this is where we talk about sometimes when it goes for you, and it might have been that, who knows, like the Man United when they played Spurs. We all remember that last season. United win 1-0. David De Gea has the most incredible game. Well, look, according to the expected goals, Tottenham should have won that game, which I think we could all see with our eyes anyway. Last night, the point being was that the difference between the two teams, according to this, wasn't that big. Now, of course, you can always read into stats what you do and what you will. But the point is that a lot of Spurs fans and certainly Pochettino and maybe certain Spurs staff will look at this and say, look, we weren't that bad. It was just the fact that the finishing from Bayern Munich was that good.
Yeah, well, I think that's fair to say, but it's just the scoreline just makes it such a miserable evening for Poch, and it was the manner of it as well in those last few minutes where Bayern Munich go on the rampage and score 3 goals in like the last 10 minutes of the game, and you think, well, that's a kind of submission, isn't it? That's a roll over and die approach, and to me, that's a team that's given up on their manager. It's a team that is no longer afraid of what he has to say to them in the dressing room, that's not really playing for his pride and for the football club's pride. They've got a brand spanking new stadium there at Spurs, regarded by many as the best stadium in the world. I think the fans and the manager deserve to see a better performance than that from players. They don't expect to see them roll over in the way that they do and succumb to the blitzkrieg that was Bayern Munich's attacking prowess.
The other big story, or another big story, which will no doubt run and run, is in regards to Salazar, of course, the ex-coach of Mo Farah. Now, we did just hear in the last section, obviously, someone who knows a lot more about this than we do, and there was a suggestion as to the Drug Olympics.
Yes, so this is it. So Alberto Salazar was Mo Farah's trainer between 2010 and 2017, during a period of which Mo Farah had an unprecedented volume of success. Now, Alberto Salazar has since been banned for 4 years for doping violations. This relates to administering testosterone to athletes, L-carnitine as well, which is essentially a product that turns fat into energy. And also allegedly, well, not allegedly, he's guilty, isn't he? Trying to tamper with medical samples. Now, there was a couple of interesting points that were made earlier there, which is that there are so many new drugs on the market that it's impossible to test for, or aren't yet bracketed as performance-enhancing drugs, that clearly are performance-enhancing drugs. So even if an athlete passes every single drugs test, they could well be on something. It is like one thing, isn't it? It's like the way that, well, it is like the way that criminals operate, isn't it? As soon as the police have them nailed on one thing, they adapt their business model and go into another, and that's how a game of cat and mouse continues, and that's where we are now. But just quickly, Mo Farah clearly had a period of unprecedented success since working with Salazar, and now he's being called to quote, give answers. For his part, he says that he's glad that the whole process is now over, but there will be a cloud hanging over Mo Farah for quite some time, and with good reason, because before Salazar, who has now been outed as a monumental drugs cheat, he was winning European level things, but he wasn't winning Olympics or Worlds, and he did do that with an astonishing degree of success since joining Nike's Oregon project, where of course Salazar was head coach. Salazar is seen as a bit of a visionary, of course. He did things like make athletes sleep in completely sealed rooms to replicate altitude. He had like an altitude chamber, compression chamber on the side of the tracks, and just loads of like little minute details that go up to making elite level athletes even better. But of course he then crossed that line, didn't he, and went even further with actual performance enhancing drugs. But this is the argument now, which is that if it is impossible to test for performance-enhancing drugs to an extent, if it is an epidemic anyway, should we or should we not just have the Drug Olympics? And this got me thinking.
Yeah.
It's got me thinking about who would do particularly well at the Drug Olympics. Is there anyone that maybe springs to mind for you,
go on,
Rich?
you kick this off. Give me a second.
Keith Richards.
Oh, yeah.
He'd smash it, wouldn't he? Absolutely smash it.
Are they performance enhancing or?
Oh, well, he's made a career for himself.
Yep.
Pete Doherty.
Another one.
Yeah, he'd do exceptionally well at the Drug Olympics, you would have thought. Yeah. But another one that sprung to mind for me was Ozzy Osbourne.
Oh, that was who I was just about to throw into the mix.
And I think he would do especially well. But actually, we sent a reporter earlier just to ask Ozzy whether or not he fancied taking part in the Drug Olympics, and crucially, whether or not he was sober now. So let's just hear what happened.
Are you sober now?
No, yeah. I'm never, but
absolutely sober.
Crystal clear.
Yeah, it's good to see that he's in a much better place now.
Yeah, Ozzy Osbourne now, of course, part of the Nike Oregon project between the years of 2011 and 2017. He's really been tearing it up, hasn't he?
Anyone else that springs to mind?
Well, you can't defame the dad, so Jimi Hendrix.
There you go.
Yeah.
Look, who do you think would perform well in the Drug Olympics? 0208 70 20
But there is an argument
558.
for this, right? Which is that, look, if we can't test for it, and if with a little nod and a wink we now have to, because of this Salazar thing, because of the Lance Armstrong thing, because of all of this jazz, we now have to, unfortunately for athletes, and because of Russia and China, we just have to assume that we're being lied to. And we do have to. I'm sorry, but I no longer give athletes the benefit of the doubt. And I feel really sorry for all the athletes there that are running clean and doing everything clean. You know, but this is the fact that it just happens with such shocking regularity. And Paula Radcliffe, of all people, I mean, she's come out and poured scorn on this investigation, saying, oh, you know, people were waiting for something big. I think USADA, which is the athletics set up there in America, were maybe trying to regain face after the Coleman fiasco. That's Christian Coleman, who missed 3 drugs tests and then went on and won the 100 metres in Doha. USADA were maybe thinking something along the lines of Lance Armstrong, which was huge. Well, it is exactly like Lance Armstrong. In fact, Lance Armstrong's involved in this. Salazar messaged Lance Armstrong, say, Lance, call me ASAP. We've tested it and it's amazing.
That could have been anything. You know?
Well, it was L-carnitine, which
okay.
is a performance-enhancing drug.
Okay, yeah, that's quite comprehensive.
Incriminating, isn't it?
It is quite incriminating.
Yeah, it really is.
Right, as much as we will talk about this more, let's go back to the big story of the day. It was a slightly heavy defeat for Spurs. We've got Ricky Sachs, last word on Spurs, on the line. Morning, Ricky.
Chaps, good morning. How are you?
Well, we're good. Probably a little bit better than you. I'm going to try and start on a positive, okay? So I've just been told that the expected goals for Bayern Munich last night were only 1.36. So they did score a lot more than perhaps they should have. They were incredibly clinical. Is that a positive?
I'm struggling to find any positives out of that game, chaps, to be honest with you. When you lose 7-2, I mean, I don't know how you can dress up any kind of positive from that game. And what I will say firstly is Maurizio Pochettino, I believe, set the team up wrong. The diamond formation isn't working. So when a formation isn't working, you have to change the game quicker before it gets away from you. That's the big concern. But secondly, I think the huge concern for Tottenham is the way a lot of these players seem to be throwing this manager under the bus. You know, the lack of commitment in that last half an hour, the capitulation is beyond defendable. It's not acceptable for a club of Tottenham Hotspur standards. And that cannot continue. It doesn't matter who the manager is. Players cannot play like that. And yes, Maurizio sends them out, but when they cross that white line, you have, as a team, you have a job to do. And to defend in the way they defended that last half an hour, no communication, no desire, a lack of fight, a lack of commitment to the badge. I mean, it's just unacceptable, that last half an hour of football. And, you know, you can take losing when a team's better. I've got no problem at all losing to a better side. But to lose like that, no, you can't lose like that. Not any game of football.
Poch is now the favourite to be sacked out of all the Premier League managers. Do you buy that?
Well, he's the favourite because the form is what it is and the media are what they are. And, you know, people will report the fact that he's under pressure. And when you lose 7-2, you are going to be under pressure as a manager. But for me, the main issue here is you've got players that do not want to be at Tottenham Hotspur Football Club. And I think what Maurizio needs to do is he needs to go back to his identity as a manager, and that was blooding through the youth, giving them a chance of players that actually want to play for Tottenham Hotspur. And it's a real tricky one for Maurizio, because he's probably in catch-22. Does he play players with a lack of experience, who haven't had Premier League football or Champions League football, and just throw them out there? Or do you stick with players that generally don't really care about the football club? So it's a real tricky one for Maurizio to handle. For me, I still feel uncomfortable sitting here saying that I want the manager to go, because I don't believe he is the root cause of all these problems. I believe part of it comes from higher up, and also a huge amount of it comes from the players that are out on that pitch. You know, you've got 11 players out there. He can't legislate for individual errors being made by some of these players. He cannot legislate, I don't believe, for that capitulation that last half an hour. There's no communication on that pitch. It's just simply not good enough. And of course, the manager, it will stop with him. But you know what? In his post-match interviews, he's defended these players when really they are throwing him under the bus, and it's just simply not good enough. And for me, what I'd rather see happen is that we weed out the players that don't want to be at the football club come January, and try and bring in players that actually do want to play for the shirt, do want to play for Tottenham, and will show a lot more fight in that last half an hour than we saw last night, because that is totally unacceptable, and as I said, beyond defendable.
Well, let's name some names then. Who out of the playing staff there stand out to you as people who are not playing for the badge, not playing for the club, not playing for the manager?
I mean, Serge Aurier, I don't know what if he was even a footballer last night, you know. So strange. He can be great one week, then another week, you know, the way he let Gnabry go. The guy's got 4 goals last night. And it's not just Serge. You know, there's players out there, individual mistakes being made. Tungi and Dembele, I love him. And when he went off Tungi, we just fell apart, capitulated. I know we already conceded 4 before that point, but we conceded a further 3 in very, very quick succession. And the issue we've got with Dembele at the moment is that he's not fully fit, and he's trying to adapt to the pace of, I think, the Premier League, and also, I said the game last night in the Champions League, and we need to get him fully fit so he can last the 90 minutes, because it is no coincidence for me. Ndombele went off, we conceded a further 3, he's a top-class player, and we need to find a way of keeping him fit. But for me to sit here and dig out individual players, I think, chaps, also, it's a collective thing. Collectively, we have to be better as a team. It is unacceptable to lose 7-2 at home in the Champions League. There's nothing I can say, and I put Maurizio involved in that as well, because he sets up the team tactically, and it's got to be better. It's got to be better. You know, we're using a diamond formation, and it clearly isn't working. It's not suiting the players or their style, and when the tactics aren't working, you have to change them quicker. It's as simple as that.
Okay, all right. So what did you make to Gnabry last night? Clearly he was deemed surplus to requirements under Tony Pulis at West Brom, and also didn't make the grade at Arsenal, but did stick 4 past you last night, and then tweeted about it, didn't he, saying North London is red?
I'll be honest, chaps, I really couldn't care about Serge Gnabry. That's not my concern. My concern is Tottenham Hotspur Football Club. My concern are the players. I don't really care about opposition players. Today is a day of reflection for ourselves. It's not about other people. You know, Serge Gnabry scored 4 goals last night. Why did he score 4 goals? Those 4 goals were avoidable. There were some great goals in there, don't get me wrong, but when you look on the whole of Tottenham defending, you don't concede 7 goals at home. You just don't. If everyone's communicating, everybody's talking, if you've got a united squad, you do not concede 7 goals. And it's back to what I've said before, that at the moment you've got players that do not want to be at that football club. And for me, I want to see Spurs try and weed out the guys that don't want to be there, and either go back to the youth and bring in players that will fight for the shirt and will be committed, or buy some players that do want to play for Tottenham Hotspur. Simple as that.
Great stuff. On that note, Ricky, we'll leave it there. Great stuff as always. Ricky Sachs, last word on Spurs. The boy's hurting this morning, isn't he?
Oh, he is. Yeah,
He
it
is.
smarts a bit of result like that, though, doesn't it?
It does. It's when they open the brackets. That's always the one for me, when they open the brackets and they actually spell out the scoreline.
What is all that about?
Do you not know? So that was back in the day. It used to be that, look, anything up to 6, and it was just as it was, it would come up. But like on the, what do you call it, the Vidi printer. So at the end of the game, if ever it's 7 or more, they put it in brackets and they write out the score.
Just to hammer it home.
Just to almost be, I think it was 7 in particular, because people might be like, oh, is that a 1? No, it's a 7. You know, so anything above 7, they then actually spell the score out, which I think is always a bit of a, it smarts a bit, yeah.
Yeah, I wasn't sure of the score actually yesterday. So I just got in touch with Len Goodman and asked him how many Bayern Munich scored. He said 7! 7!
I had a feeling that was going there. Fantastic. We're going to be talking to Ian Dunn, ex-Huddersfield, very shortly. We've also got Gary Mabbott coming up. He'll certainly give us his thoughts on the game yesterday. We'll be speaking to Sam Parkin too, and no doubt we'll be speaking more about Mr. Salazar. It's 19 minutes past 8.
Last time I was in the UK, I met national treasure Mary Berry's grandmother, Elderberry.
Love sport.
You all right, mate?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Yeah? Really? It's just, there's a massive grizzly bear sitting on you. You sure you're okay?
Well, now that you mention it, sometimes we say we're fine when we're not. But with 1 in 4 experiencing a mental health problem, if your mate says he's fine, he might not be. Be in your mate's corner and ask twice. Time to change.
Hi, I'm Dean. I work for a successful shipping company in Suffolk. Ever since I heard about people's success with the spokesmansaid.com, I knew I had to investigate for myself. Every time I need to compare car insurance, home insurance and energy bills, I always contact a spokesmansaid.com. This year alone, I saved over £260 on my car insurance and also £585 on my energy bills. I saved big through a spokesmansaid.com, and you could too.
With a spokesmansaid.com. Fighting for you, saving you money.
If you're in business, I bet you hate wasting money. We Do Taxi Tops can help you achieve minimum wastage on your advertising costs and maximum exposure. Our revolutionary taxi tops can target your potential customers in the right place at the right time, so your message has the greatest potential for making an impact. We Do Taxi Tops. Visit WEDOOH.com. We Do. The smarter, quicker way of advertising in London, supporting London businesses of all sizes.
Before you set off on a long journey, remember to check your vehicle. Are your tyres correctly inflated? And are the treads deep enough? Have you got enough fuel? Is your oil level right? Checking your vehicle doesn't take long, but can prevent a breakdown or accident and save you money. So, before you set off on a long journey, check your tyres, fuel and oil. Highways England, connecting the country.
This is Love Sport.
Love Sport Breakfast, me, Richard Lee, Patrick Christys. We are here with you until 10 a.m. Of course, loads going on in the world of sport this morning. Nothing bigger right now than Tottenham's result last night, losing 7-2 to Bayern Munich. Man City, much more positive night for them. And of course, Salazar has been big news today as well. The ex-coach of Mo Farah, the disgraced ex-coach. But of course, there was also plenty of championship action last night, which we're going to get stuck into very shortly. A good night for Leeds. They beat West Brom. They've gone back top of the table. A bad night for Stoke as it stands. The manager is still in place. Jones is still in place. However, certainly listening to his interview after the game, it does sound like he may well be dead man walking. Patrick?
Yeah, 100%. It was an interview after the game where Jones came out and apologised to everyone. He said that he gambled with people's lives out of his backroom staff that he brought with him from Luton and his family, of course, which he forced out of Luton and moved to Stoke. I mean, where next? Hull? Grimsby? What do you reckon? Where else could he go as he just takes him on a tour of all the rubbish towns of the UK? But anyway, so he's apologised for that. It does look as though he's going to be. I think the trigger might be pulled later today.
Well, one man who I believe, I don't know if he was in Stoke or not, but certainly it was a good result at Stoke yesterday for Huddersfield. Ian Dunn, ex-Huddersfield, is on the line. Morning, Ian.
Morning, guys. How are you doing?
Yeah, good, thanks. Off and running, finally. A good win last night at Stoke, 1-0.
At last, yeah. It's I watched the game. Thought Huddersfield did well and deserved the win in the end. It really was. It was a must-win game for both teams, and thankfully Huddersfield got the points.
Well, yeah, cause I looked at this, and you're right. It was a must-win game in many ways, and obviously for both, given they're both on 2 points, and now obviously close the gap on Reading, who are in 21st, back to 3, and it's not quite so bad. I guess there was more pressure on Jones than there was on Huddersfield in particular, given that it does look like now you would think that Nathan Jones, given that it's 2 points from 10 games, I don't know if you've heard his talk after the game, he was obviously under huge pressure going into the game. Could you see that with the players at Stoke? Did they look like they were under pressure?
Yeah, I mean, footballers will tell you, you've all been in them situations where your team's struggling, your manager's probably struggling. It's not a good place to be. It's not a happy environment. And yeah, I feel for Nathan Jones. You could see it in his interview last night. He looked a bit of a beaten man, unfortunately. You can only do so much, and Stoke are really they're in a trough at the moment. From the outside looking in, they've got real problems. But from my point of view, Huddersfield Town is a really good win, and the performance showed signs of improvement as well under the new management.
Yeah, I want to speak of the Cowley brothers. Obviously, it was a big thing them taking over at Huddersfield. They've had a lot of success over the last few years. I was into an interview with him yesterday, and I quite liked the way in which he's coming across. He's talking a lot about processes, so it's not so much about results, which of course are important, but it's more about getting the processes right, getting the style of play right. Have they made a good impression so far?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, they come across as people, bright people, wise people that are trying to build the foundations rather than jump straight in. And I think Huddersfield really, touch wood, I hope they've got some good guys in charge at the moment. There's certainly the work they've done in their history in recent years would suggest that they know what they're doing. And now they've got an opportunity, a big football club, to put those principles into practice.
Something that I did find interesting last night in this particular game was that Stoke had 18 shots, none on target, which maybe that sums up where they're at. So, certainly what I've read in terms of where they've been this season, they've actually been in a lot of the games, they've dominated a lot of the games, but haven't necessarily turned that domination into goals. Huddersfield, on the other hand, obviously clinical, had the one shot on target. The impression that I got, and again, having only seen the highlights, that it was a bit of a nervy encounter.
Yeah, you could see it was two teams that knew defeat was the last option. It sounds stupid to say, but it was true. Last night was two teams that were so desperate for a win, and it showed a lot in the play. Stoke, to be fair, they did okay, but like you said, they just can't put the ball in the back of the net, and that's a real problem. On the positive side for them, though, I didn't realise that statistic, but 18 shots would suggest that they're not shot shy, so they might have a corner to turn. You never know.
Well, this is it. Looking at both of these teams, and obviously Huddersfield been in the Premier League last season, Stoke a couple of years ago. It's two of the teams you would expect to be certainly at the other end of the table. Now they have turned the corner. Now they have got that victory. What are the expectations for Huddersfield? It's still so early in the season. One way of looking at it is that they're 13 points off the playoffs right now, which certainly isn't that big. Is it realistically, given how tough last season was, given the start that Huddersfield have had, is it more a case of just consolidating this season, trying to get themselves into mid-table and be at least safe, and then build next season? Or realistically, is it one where, given how early it is, it's still very much playoffs if they can get there?
Well, in football, you wouldn't rule anything out, but I would temper that with a little bit of caution. Huddersfield have had a terrible start to the season. They've had a really chastening experience last season in the Premier Division. I think this season the Cowley brothers will try and build them foundations, and they'll take each game as it comes, but they'll be building the foundations for the future. It's not a quick fix, this one. They've got to get themselves in there, get their principles, get the players that they want in to understand what their principles actually are, and build again. But like I say, you just never rule anything out in football. You could go on a run, 2 or 3 wins, and suddenly the table looks like a different place. So, I would definitely temper that with, I think the Cowleys will be trying to get their principles across initially and build for the future.
Yeah, and in terms of the style of play that Danny Cowley plays, have we started to see a slight shift? And added to that, the squad that Huddersfield have currently got, do the players fit into that dynamic?
I think they do. I think Huddersfield actually are. I was at the Huddersfield Town versus Lincoln game where Lincoln beat Huddersfield last month in the Carabao Cup, and Lincoln played such good football. There really wasn't too much of a difference between the two teams. Huddersfield had a lot of reserves out that evening, but you could see, and the ethos and the football they actually put on the pitch was a good brand. It was the kind of football that you want to see your club play, and I think Huddersfield have the players capable of playing how they want them to play. It's just getting that across now. Lots of training sessions, I would imagine, and putting it into practice on match day.
Fantastic. Ian, really appreciate you joining us.
That's a pleasure. Cheers.
Great stuff. Ian Dunn there, ex-Huddersfield, giving his thoughts on Huddersfield last night. Of course, they are off and running. Not such a good night for Stoke as it stands. Nathan Jones is still in a job, but certainly having heard his press conference after the game, he certainly sounded like he thought that might not be the case too much longer.
Yes, absolutely. Nathan Jones is on the way out, isn't he, really? I think it's fair to say. And certainly the speech that he gave last night after the game was almost like a very long-winded resignation note, wasn't it? Essentially apologising for everyone. It was like the opposite of an Oscars speech.
Let's hear it.
I know you said before the game that this will, no matter what happens, be a steep learning curve for you. I just wondered, do you feel you could have done anything more up to this point?
Possibly. I would have made different decisions along the way. I would have put different people on a penalty when they're doing, or I would have, I would have. It's a learning curve, and look, the thing I'm sad about is because this is a wonderful club. I left a wonderful club, a wonderful group of people that were really on the way up, and I gambled everything, and it hasn't paid off. And I gambled with other people's lives as well, my staff's lives, my wife's life and things, and that's the thing for me that's really hurting, because I'd worked so hard to get to a certain position, and then look, it just hasn't worked out. But that's football, and I came to a wonderful club, wonderful owners. I can't thank them enough. The fans have given me patience, but I haven't repaid them.
That was Nathan Jones. As you say, it does sound like the writing's on the wall. But look, as of talking right now, nothing has happened at Stoke, but we'll certainly keep an eye on that today.
To be fair, a lot of people say nothing's happened at Stoke since the 70s.
Some people.
Some people
Not you.
would say that.
Not you.
No, I say
You're
it.
very complimentary about Stoke.
It's a horrible part of the world.
Okay, what's going on?
So Frank Lampard has defended Ross Barkley. It's just some stories you might have missed. Frank Lampard has defended Ross Barkley after he was escorted to a cash point by police in Liverpool after refusing to pay a taxi driver after he'd spilt chips in the back of his car. So well done, Ross. There is some video footage of that online, by the way. Well worth a watch. Arsenal are open to loaning out Mesut Ozil in January, but fear they will be unable to offload their top earner. He's 30 years old. He's had a peripheral role under Emery. He's on £350,000 a week, and Arsenal is thinking that they might actually pay to loan him out, which is a bit of a kick in the nuts for Ozil, isn't it? Although it'll be the first time he's kicked anything in anger for quite a while. Keeper Kiko in race round. Leeds goalkeeper Kiko Garcia faces an FA probe into claims he racially abused an opponent. This is a 32-year-old Spaniard, is said to have targeted Charlton forward Jonathan Lako at the Valley on Saturday, and referee John Brooks put that in his match notes.
Good stuff. We're going to be talking to Gary Mabbott, former Spurs captain, next.
This is Love Sport. Listen to Love Sport Radio on your smartphone today. Simply download the free Love Sport app from the App Store or Google Play. Tap the play button and you'll be able to listen to your favourite station. Anytime, anywhere. Love Sport Radio, the station giving fans a voice. Fed up with extortionate bills? Stop wasting your money. A Spokesman Said is the leading price comparison site that can help you make big savings. Visit aspokesmansaid.com for the best deals on your car, home and travel insurance.
Spokesmansaid.com. Fighting for you, saving you money.
You all right, mate?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Yeah? Really? It's just there's a massive grizzly bear sitting on you. You sure you're okay?
Well, now that you mention it.
Sometimes we say we're fine when we're not. But with 1 in 4 experiencing a mental health problem, if your mate says he's fine, he might not be. Be in your mate's corner and ask twice. Time to change.
Hi, my name's Bob. I'm a retired civil servant from Durham. I used the advice that a Spokesman Said gave me to haggle with Sky to reduce my monthly payments from £86 per month to £43 per month, which was a saving of £774 over the 18-month contract. A nice little result, if I say so myself, but it was only due to a Spokesman Said and his brilliant advice that I was able to do a deal for the new contract.
With a spokesmansaid.com. Fighting for you, saving you money.
If you're in business, I bet you hate wasting money. We Do Taxi Tops can help you achieve minimum wastage on your advertising costs and maximum exposure. Our revolutionary taxi tops can target your potential customers in the right place at the right time, so your message has the greatest potential for making an impact. We Do Taxi Tops. Visit WEDOOH.com. We Do. The smarter, quicker way of advertising in London, supporting London businesses of all sizes.
If you see somebody showing any of the signs of a stroke, you don't have to think about it, you just dial 999. Use the FAST test. F. Face. Has their face fallen on one side? Can they smile? A. Arms. Can they raise both arms and keep them there? S. Speech. Is their speech slurred? T. Time. Time to call 999 if you see any one of these signs. Act fast, make the call, dial 999.
This is Love Sport.
That's for breakfast. Me, Richard Lee, Patrick Christys here with you until 10. Lots going on in the world of sport, but nothing bigger right now than the game last night. Of course, it did finish Tottenham 2, Bayern Munich 7. And who better to discuss it with than former Spurs captain, former Spurs legend, Gary Mabbott. Morning, Gary.
Morning, Rich. Morning, Patrick.
Morning. Look, keen to get your thoughts on this. I tried to start with a positive. We had a Spurs fan on earlier who was quite scathing over the performance last night. Something that I did read, which I do find really interesting, was they love the whole expected goals after a game to kind of give an idea. And interestingly, Bayern Munich's expected goals last night wasn't that high. It was 1.36. It's the biggest difference between expected goals and number of goals scored possibly ever, I think. So was it a game whereby it was just one of those nights that everything struck from Bayern went in, or are there some serious problems at Spurs, do you think?
Well, Rich, I mean, if I'm being honest, it was a bizarre and astonishing game of football. We started the game exactly as we had hoped. With intensity, we put Bayern on the back foot. In the first 15 minutes, Son could have had a hat-trick. But then after going behind, of course, Bayern started to get a foothold in midfield, and then the 15 minutes either side of half-time, we completely lost our way, and before we knew it, we found we were 4-1 down.
Is this because I have this conversation a lot in regards to, I say, luck in football, in that the smallest thing can make the biggest difference. So you mentioned that Tottenham could have scored a couple more, and if they'd have even got one, then maybe we're talking this morning of a glorious Spurs victory or a 4-1, 5-1 victory, where those small moments in a game can change an entire game.
Yes, I mean, the thing was that I think the problem was in the second half was that sort of we did capitulate to some degree. I think that will be the concerning thing. And basically, Bayern sliced us apart time and time again and gave us a masterclass in clinical finishing. But the thing was, if you look at the game overall, I think Bayern had 10 shots and obviously scored 7. We had 8 shots and scored 2. Yeah. And the thing is, once you're 4-1 down at home, of course, you've got to try and get the game back. We threw on Lucas Moura, we threw on Christian Eriksen. We tried to get forward. We got a goal back from the penalty with Harry Kane. Christian Eriksen had a great shot just outside the box, over the crossbar. But again, it could have been sort of 4-3. It could have been something in it for us. But it was just, I think, the ease with which on the counter-attack, because we're throwing everything forward, you leave yourselves vulnerable at the back, and they did cut through us very easily in that last period.
I suppose the troubling thing for Spurs would be that it's now, 17 defeats in the last 36 games, which certainly prior to that, it wasn't so long ago, middle of last season, where they're a couple of points off top and you're wondering whether it's going to be a fight between the three of them as to who wins the Premier League. And of course, Spurs drifted away to an extent, but 17 and 36 is very high given the quality of the Spurs squad.
Yes, you got some great stats there this morning, Rich.
I've got all sorts. Do you know what? I've got loads more that I'm going to throw at you in a minute as well.
Well, no, yeah, but of course. I mean, I think at the start of the season, I think there was a bit of, certainly going into the game last weekend against Southampton, a bit of apprehension. Obviously, we lost at home to Newcastle. We struggled to get past Aston Villa on the first day of the season. And then sort of be losing away at Leicester after being a goal in front. But the last 2 home performances, obviously we beat Crystal Palace convincingly. Yeah. Last weekend, obviously we got past Southampton, but if we'd have kept 11 men on the field, I think it'd have been more of a convincing victory. But yes, I mean, obviously I think the manager has spoken numerous times about, throughout the summer and what's been going on, and is there been some behind the scenes in the dressing room, a bit of discord there. But that always happens in football, to be fair, and I think it's something which, always rumours about players coming and going, managers coming and going, they're not always going to be there. And generally players are quite stoical. They deal with it well, and the manager deals with it well. But as I say, it was just, it was last night. I mean, particularly the fact that generally I think that once, when Vertonghen and Toby are on top of their game, I think they're probably the best partnership in the Premier League. But it was just with the ease with which, on the counter-attack, they were getting through us last night. And of course, when the final whistle went, you looked at the scoreboard, and it was like 7-2. As I say, it was astonishing.
Yeah. Do you think that the brand spanking new stadium there at Spurs, probably the best stadium in the world, do you think that's at risk of becoming a little bit of a white elephant, that actually they've got this amazing ground, but realistically the Spurs fans are not going to see this team ever lift any silverware on it?
Well, again, I mean, I don't think that's going to be the case. I think that everybody that's seen this stadium, it's already been, I think, regarded as the best stadium currently the best stadium in the world. When we had the last test event, I was the team manager of the Spurs Legends, and we had all of our players from Jurgen Klinsmann to Gaza to Berbatov to Ginola, who always travel the world seeing the best stadiums. They were totally in awe of the stadium. Jose Mourinho was the manager of the Inter Milan Legends team, and then after the game he said to me, "Gary, this is amazing." So no, I mean, obviously it's all been put in place. Last year it was a bit of a funny season, being at Wembley half the season and then moving into the new stadium. But no, I mean, I don't think you can put any sort of blame towards the stadium for last night. As I said, it was just one of those extraordinary games. From suddenly going out there in the first half an hour, feeling that's it. We've got this. We've got the upper hand on Bayern Munich. We just got to keep pushing them, and then suddenly, Bayern got a foothold in midfield, and things turned around very quickly.
And given the reactive industry that we're in, Poch, of course, is now favourite to be sacked with the bookies. I mean, I personally can't see this happening, certainly given that he's being courted or has been courted by the likes of Real Madrid, the likes of Man United, so on and so forth. Again, just some of the words that are coming out, I suppose, from Pochettino more than anyone. Do you get any impression that it might be a case of Pochettino moving on anytime soon?
Well, no, I think sometimes there's a certain degree of misinterpretation in some of the comments coming out from Mauricio. But if I'd have thought, if I had one idea that he was thinking about leaving the club, then personally I thought that would have happened last summer after a fantastic few years of the club, turning the club into a Champions League side year in, year out, getting to a Champions League final in Madrid. Obviously at that stage, if you were wanting to go, you thought, well, that's going to be the time to move on. That didn't happen. It's still a work in progress for him, and there's still a lot of work to do. So no, I don't have any concerns that he's the one to jump ship.
In terms of touching on just one or two of the individuals, if that's okay, there's a few little stories behind the scenes. There's always a different narrative going on, and Christian Eriksen seems to have been a big talking point over the summer, given that his contract is running out at the end of this season, and I suppose it's always the way when it's not necessarily happening for you on the pitch and you have got your contract running out. It's very easy to pinpoint someone like that and blame them, I guess, for poor performances. Have you seen a difference in Eriksen at all this season as opposed to last?
Again, it's a difficult question to answer, because there's always that finger being pointed at times, because a player has said that he would like to move on to other challenges. He's been offered a huge pay rise. I don't think it's about the finances side of it. I think he would love the opportunity to go and play somewhere else and have that experience. So for me. And of course, if a player wants to move on, the one thing that player wants to do is to be, every single game he's playing, to be going out on the field and showcasing himself. So I don't feel that that's having a particular big say on what's happening. I think more things could be said about, obviously, certain players and the time they're getting on the field at the start of the season. Christian Eriksen was he started the first game on the bench and came off, and when he came on, he was one that was the catalyst to beat Aston Villa. So I think it's very easy, especially after a 7-2 defeat, to start looking to point fingers to say where did things go wrong. And of course, as at any football club, the day after the game, the management team will be sitting down together today. They'll be looking at areas where we felt we were not up to it on the day. Those areas have to be addressed. The manager has to put things in place to ensure that that there are improvements in those areas. But looking, I think, to pinpoint individuals after 7-2 defeats, I think overall, I think you could say generally, I think most of the team capitulated last night, and obviously Bayern went on to win by that scoreline.
Great stuff. Last, I'd just love to get your thoughts. So Owen Hargreaves was quite outspoken on Spurs tactics. Would love to get your thoughts on this.
One thing I would say is I hope they don't play out from the back, because today they got caught 4 times. And at times you want to play, but Bayern played safe. Every time he touched it, he had an option on. I think at times Tottenham were trying to play, and it wasn't really on. So I think if you're Tottenham, maybe the 2 up the pitch. Maybe they needed 1 more midfield, so they had a different angle, or the outball or somewhere. It didn't look like the outball was on.
Got to protect the fullbacks more.
Well, they need, because they had the 2 up. I felt sorry for the fullbacks, because they literally had 1v1 against 2 of the best athletes probably in the Champions League.
I mean, I guess you've touched on this already to an extent, that it's easy to look at the tactics and the fact that maybe they did take risks at times, but I guess your thinking is that it was just one of those nights where, look, that it happens sometimes, where 7 shots, 7 goals, and it is what it is. Or do you think that maybe the tactics weren't quite right?
Well, again, hindsight's a wonderful thing, and of course, I think going back to last weekend, Hugo was the first to come out and apologise after his Cruyff turn on the goal line. But that is the way, and I think, to his credit, the manager came out after the game and said, "Don't blame Hugo, blame me, because that's where I tell him to play." But of course, when you get turned over, like we did obviously with that goal last weekend with Hugo, and again the result last night, then obviously managers have to look at changing things at times, looking at maybe there are areas that we can strengthen, where we're not leaving ourselves maybe so vulnerable. So yes, I mean all those things will be looked at. We've got a fantastic backroom staff that work with Mauricio, and I'm sure they'll have plenty of work on their hands today. The team will be in today preparing for the game against Brighton at the weekend, which of course now becomes a massive game. And in a couple of weeks' time, we've got the next Champions League game. Obviously, the Red Star Belgrade, who of course beat Olympiacos last night. Of course, that's the old name, Red Star Belgrade.
Of course, yeah.
I mean,
that's how I know him still.
Exactly, yes. Their new name is FK Kravinas Zvezda. So there we go.
There you go.
So that's our next Champions League game, a home game there, and that's the game obviously is vital that we get the 3 points.
Fantastic. Well, look, this is lastly, and of course, there'll be a lot of emotional Spurs fans this morning, but what message would you give to them going into these next few games?
Well, no, what I'd say was that last night was an astounding game of football, and I felt that it was disappointing that obviously we conceded so easily in the second half, but on to the next. Brighton away the weekend, and make sure we get the 3 points there.
Fantastic. Look, Gary, really appreciate your time. Appreciate it's never easy to come on after a heavy defeat like this, so it's hugely appreciated you coming on.
Cheers, guys. Thank you.
Great stuff. Gary Mabbott there, former Spurs captain, Spurs legend, giving us his thoughts on the game last night. 14 minutes to 9.
If you mess with the USA, I guarantee they'll be held to pay.
Giving your team the coverage they deserve. Love Sport Radio.
Get ready for Brexit on the 31st of October. This means that travelling to the EU will change. You'll need to check online if your passport is valid for travel to Europe. If you're planning on driving, you'll need to check if you have the right documents to drive. And make sure your travel insurance covers all your healthcare needs. To keep your trip on track, check what you need to do at gov.uk/Brexit. Get ready for Brexit on the 31st of October.
If you're in business, I bet you hate wasting money. We Do Taxi Tops can help you achieve minimum wastage on your advertising costs and maximum exposure. Our revolutionary taxi tops can target your potential customers in the right place at the right time, so your message has the greatest potential for making an impact. We Do Taxi Tops. Visit wedooh.com. We Do. The smarter, quicker way of advertising in London, supporting London businesses of all sizes.
Whoa! Look how much saturated fat is in these chocolate biscuits. It's surprising how much is in our food and drinks. For us kids, eating too much saturated fat can lead to harmful fat building up inside, which we can't see, increasing the risk of heart disease or stroke when we get older. So be food smart. Download the free Change for Life food scanner app and start making healthier choices today.
There are many things a mother can pass on to her baby. Her smile, her eye colour, and her immunity to whooping cough. Whooping cough is a very dangerous illness for young babies, and at the moment it's spreading fast. A simple vaccination during your pregnancy can help to protect your baby in their first weeks. Please speak to your GP, nurse, or healthcare professional and pass on your immunity.
Love Sport.
I know you said before the game that this will, no matter what happens, be a steep learning curve for you. I just wondered, do you feel you could have done the thing more up to this point?
Possibly, I would have made different decisions along the way. I would have put different people on a penalty when they're doing, or I would have, I would have. It's a learning curve, and look, the thing I'm sad about is because this is a wonderful club. I left a wonderful club, a wonderful group of people that were really on the way up, and I gambled everything, and it hasn't paid off. And I gambled with other people's lives as well, my staff's lives, my wife's life and things, and that's the thing for me that's really hurting.
That was, of course, Nathan Jones after the defeat last night, losing 1-0 to Huddersfield
You ever gambled with anyone's life, Rich?
Not anyone's life. No, you?
Oh, yeah, all the time.
Yeah, you win, though, I assume.
Oh, yeah, that's it. But I've thought there have been numerous times, and to be honest with you, I would have thought nothing over just gambling the misses.
Yeah.
You know, just who's the only real asset that I've got.
Last ditch or kind of one of the first things
Straight
you put
in,
on the table?
Straight in, yeah, when I'm bluffing as well.
Put it all on number 16.
Just really keep her on her toes.
Yeah, absolutely. Wise words there from my co-host Patrick Christys. Delighted to say we're going to be talking a little bit of EFL with our EFL expert Sam Parkin. Morning, Sam.
Morning, guys. How you doing?
Well, we're good. And Nathan Jones, they're talking about gambling lives. I can't imagine that's your strategy.
Definitely not. Definitely not. Got to feel sorry for him, haven't you? I mean, it's been difficult to try and critique them the last few weeks because he's tried absolutely everything. I think when you look at the fixture list, considering the start of the season and the back end of last season, when you see these two home games in close proximity, you knew that the writing was on the wall. He had to get a return of points from these games. They've lost both of them against obviously struggling Huddersfield last night. And it's very honest. The writing's on the wall. What can he say after the game? He has given it everything. You don't become a bad manager overnight. It's been incredibly unlucky, I think. He's had a lot of bad luck. I think there was a period about a month ago when he seemed to have found a formula. I saw them at Charlton and they lost, but they played very well. And I thought that was the time to stick to his guns and pick the same team for a few weeks. And he didn't do that. And I just think maybe he might reflect on that period a bit of costing him his job ultimately.
Well, do you know what you mentioned there about being unlucky? Because you can't help but feel, and we see this elsewhere, and I used a good example yesterday of Oxford, who were struggling until a few weeks ago. All of a sudden they get a good victory, and that now leads to 5 clean sheets on the bounce, 4 wins, beating, was it Lincoln 6, West Ham 4, Gillingham 3. You know, they've got this belief within the squad. And I mean, one of the big things with Stoke for me is the amount of individual errors. I know that Jack Butland's come under a lot of criticism, and you wonder, even a decision like that, the fact that Jack Butland wasn't sold to Aston Villa in the summer, for instance, something like that where suddenly just one decision may well have had a bit of a knock-on impact?
Yeah, definitely. And I think Oxford's a good comparison because I think, people that are into the XG and stuff, it was really stacking up in Stoke's favour the first few weeks of the season. They were creating a number of chances, not taking them at one end, and then individual errors costing them at the other end. And yeah, there's other ingredients involved. Let's not kid ourselves. There's going to be a few in that squad that haven't bought into what he's been preaching, whether that's an ego thing, whether it's because they've been Premier League players and they don't believe they should be at that level. I think there's been a bit of that going on. But I think the biggest thing, and I think he alluded to it after the game against Stoke, was you have to get the platform right. Yes, you can go and be intricate and the players at the top end of the pitch can express themselves once you've got that platform. They haven't had that platform. And I think that's basically saying that he's got a lot of players that want to go forward and get on the ball, but he hasn't got players that want to run back. And I think that's what he had at Luton. And I think that is exactly what he's identified the last few games. Not everyone has been on board and given 100%.
So what's the answer for Stoke? Because they've tried to play a different style of football, but the reality is now, bottom of the table. Is it time that they just went back in the market for Tony Pulis?
Well, he was on Sky last night and he was playing with a very straight bat. So who knows? I don't think a large amount of the Stoke supporters would welcome that, to be completely frank. But it might have to be someone who can come in and firefight. I mean, off the top of my head, I can't really think of anyone this moment, but I'm sure there's plenty of experienced managers at Championship level out of work. And it might be just a steadying the ship job for the rest of this season, and then the owners getting their heads together again in the summer and thinking which way they want to go. I mean, I'm so disappointed if this is the end, because I was surprised that they could get him. I was surprised that he went, and I believed he was going to be a complete success there. So I'm still trying to kind of get my head around it, because it's difficult to fathom that it's gone so horribly wrong.
Yeah, no, I fully agree. It was interesting watching Tony Pulis, actually. You're right, he did straight bat, but at the same time, he basically said, didn't he, he wouldn't ever speak about someone's job while they're still in the job. Yeah. However, it's well known that he's looking for a return into football. If there is someone to firefight, there is an argument to say that even if it were just the end of the season, you'd expect him to certainly get safety, if nothing else. I want to go to the other end of the table. Leeds find themselves back on top of the pile. A good win against West Brom. West Brom's first defeat of the season.
Yeah, but brilliant victory, hard-fought victory against a team in West Brom who are improving game by game. I mean, I thought they were exceptional in the second half, dominated the ball. The only criticism is they didn't work Casilla enough, and Leeds were still creating chances on Johnson's goal at the other end. So it was probably a draw, would have been the fair result, but I've seen a few performances like this throughout the Championship season so far. Sometimes it's about rolling your sleeves up and blocking shots and being dogged, and Leeds had that in abundance. You could sense it with the crowd as well. I thought there was an outstanding individual performance from Patrick Bamford, who gets an enormous amount of criticism, quite rightly sometimes, because he misses chances, but he gave a fantastic centre-forwards performance last night, and much needed from Leeds. But let's not kid ourselves, West Brom are going to be, I don't know, I'd probably make them, considering what they've done the last couple of weeks, I'd probably fancy them to finish above Leeds this season.
Interesting. Well, it's interesting now, like the league's starting to take shape. Something I always love about the Championship. Only 4 points separating first and 10th. Of course, a couple of teams in action tonight, which we'll touch on. But certainly last night in particular, Fulham, a quick mention for them, a big win away at Reading. You'd expect them to be there or thereabouts?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the worst possible team to go down to 10 men against. I've seen the tackles this morning. John Swift, who's not that type of player at all. So I would imagine the management would have been seething, because that's cost Reading any opportunity of getting anything from the game. When I've seen Fulham live, it's too safe, the passing. They keep the ball brilliantly, but yeah, if they could get a little bit more dynamic running behind Mitrovic from the two wide boys, Cavaliero and Knockaert, who I think want to come to feet too often. All three of those players want to come to feet. If they could be a little bit more direct, they should absolutely romp this league. We'll certainly be in that, mix for automatic promotion. But yeah, I mean, you don't want to go down to 10 men against them. And with Mitrovic and obviously Kearney, the form he's in, that was a foregone conclusion really that they were going to run out handsome victors last night.
And a quick word on the fixtures tonight. Barnsley taking on Derby, Cardiff, QPR, Charlton, brilliant of course so far this season, taking on Swansea, Luton, Millwall, interesting encounter there. But I just want to touch on Brentford, Bristol very quickly. How do you see that one playing out?
Well, I was there Sunday at Barnsley, and that was a second half performance where it all came together for Brentford. They were brilliant. They were helped by some quite comical defending from Barnsley at times, but I suppose that conversation still wrangles on. Is Ollie Watkins going to be that centre forward and get that return of goals? Well, that was the perfect day for him on Sunday to not get the typical Ollie Watkins goals, which were maybe running onto things, beating a man and getting strikes away, but 3 headers in and around the 6-yard box. And I think Ollie can do it. It's whether he wants to do it, and I think that can be vitally important what he produced on Sunday. So, yeah, I mean, looking back to their best with Canos on one side and Ben Rama on the other, looking good for Brentford. Obviously, I still think they could probably do with another season Championship marksman in there as well. They've got Karalis, the lad from the Greek player as well, who has started to come on off the bench. So if he can be an asset as well, no reason why Brentford can't, push for playoffs this year. And yeah, tough game against Bristol City. Very good away from home. 3-3 at Preston at the weekend. I'd expect something similar, maybe a score draw tonight.
Great stuff. Sam, really appreciate you coming on. That's Sam Parkin there, EFL expert, giving his thoughts on last night's action and tonight's action. 3 minutes to 9.
Love sport.
You're in leakage, you're in leakage. You're in leakage, you're in leakage. You're in leakage. You're in leakage, you're in leakage.
Tenna men.
Cage.
Pants and pads.
You're
discreet. Masculine.
You're
secure absorption zone. Buy online or in shops.
You're in
Tenna men. Keep control.
You're in?
No.
If you're in business, I bet you hate wasting money. We Do Taxi Tops can help you achieve minimum wastage on your advertising costs and maximum exposure. Our revolutionary taxi tops can target your potential customers in the right place at the right time, so your message has the greatest potential for making an impact. We Do Taxi Tops. Visit WEDOOH.com. We Do. The smarter, quicker way of advertising in London, supporting London businesses of all sizes.
Oh, it's okay. Let's face it, when your kids are ill, you do anything to help them feel better. But remember, antibiotics aren't always needed. You might not realise it, but taking antibiotics when you don't need them puts you and your family at risk of a longer and more severe illness. Help keep your family well. Always take your doctor's advice on antibiotics. Search NHS antibiotics. All better.
Before you set off on a long journey,
remember to check your vehicle. Are your tyres correctly inflated? And are the treads deep enough? Have you got enough fuel? Is your oil level right? Checking your vehicle doesn't take long, but can prevent a breakdown or accident and save you money. So, before you set off on a long journey, check your tyres, fuel and oil. Highways England, connecting the country.
Love Sport Breakfast, me, Richard Lee, Patrick Christys. We're online, digital radio and on your Alexa smart speaker. We're also on YouTube. Feel free to tune in, look up Love Sport. You will find us. We're on the socials, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, at Love Sport Radio. Or you can WhatsApp us, 0208 70 20 558. Breaking news. Andy Murray beats fellow Brit Cameron Norrie 7-6, 6-7, 6-1 to progress to the quarterfinals of the China Open.
He's big in China.
He is.
It's funny, actually, because his hip has now got Made in China written on it.
Really?
Yeah, it does.
Oh, that's a lovely little link. Well, there you go. Well done to Andy Murray. He is on his way back. Big hour coming up. Do stay tuned, 9 o'clock.
On digital radio, online, mobile and smart speaker.
This is Love Sport News.
From the Sky News Centre at 9, Prince Harry and Meghan are suing the Mail on Sunday, accusing the media of behaviour that destroys lives. The couple, who finished their tour of Africa today, are furious about the publication of a letter the Duchess sent to her father. The paper says it stands by the story. Royal biographer and former Mail on Sunday employee Angela Levin says Harry's statement is extraordinary.
It's astonishing that it's now at the end of what has been an incredibly successful tour, when the press has been very kind, very positive. They've followed everything they wanted, all cooing over baby Archie, which is all lovely.
Conservative delegates and officials in Brussels will hear Boris Johnson's latest offer for a Brexit deal later. The Prime Minister will use a speech at his party's conference in Manchester to once again rule out seeking a delay to the October 31st deadline. Burger King has been told off by the ad watchdog for its tweet that it would be selling milkshakes all weekend. The Advertising Standards Authority says it was encouraging antisocial behaviour after the drinks had been thrown at a number of politicians earlier this year. It's claimed a Thomas Cook-style airline collapse could happen again. Peter Books, who was commissioned by the government to examine the aviation industry after Monarch went bust, says carriers will need to weather tough market conditions.
Some of the weaker ones may not. I don't want to name names, can't make predictions, but I don't think it's all over yet.
He's recommending better protection for customers and taxpayers. In sport, a difficult start to the season for Tottenham continued with a humiliating 7-2 defeat to Bayern Munich in the Champions League last night. Manchester City beat Dinamo Zagreb 2-0. And Andy Murray has beaten fellow Brit Cameron Norrie to progress to the quarter-finals of the China Open tennis. The three-time Grand Slam champion thrashed his opponent 6-1 in the deciding set. That's the latest. I'm Anna Bates.
This is Love Sport.
Hey phone, connect to Wi-Fi.
Connecting to cyber criminals.
You're not listening. I said Wi-Fi.
I'm listening. Cyber criminals could be too. Using Wi-Fi could leave your personal data exposed.
How can I keep it private?
With a secure VPN that encrypts your data, you need new Norton 360. It has multiple layers of protection, including VPN, device security, password manager, and more.
Ooh.
Go to uk.norton.com to get all-in-one protection starting at $24.99 for your first year. Terms apply. That's uk.norton.com.
Love Sport Radio. On digital radio, online, mobile and smart speaker. This is Love Sport Breakfast with Richard Lee and Patrick Christys.
Good morning. Love Sport Breakfast, Love Sport Radio, me, Richard Lee, Patrick Christys, who does want to say something.
I've just been thinking about, so you know how we were talking about the Alberto Salazar stuff, the Mo Farah stuff, and whether or not we should just have the Drug Olympics.
Yeah.
I thought who'd go really well in that? The jockeys. Because there's been so many drugs being done by jockeys that they've had to introduce new things. We'll add that to the list. So we've got Keith Richards.
Yeah.
We've got Pete Doherty.
Yeah.
We had Ozzy Osbourne, and now jockeys.
Who do you guys think will do well in the Drug Olympics, which Patrick Christys is making some serious headway on? 028 70 20 558. Very quickly, headlines this morning. Of course, the biggest headline is Tottenham. They lost 7-2 to Bayern Munich. A good night for Man City. They won 2-0. Andy Murray. Breaking news, he's beat fellow Brit Cameron Norrie to progress to the quarter-finals of the China Open. And, of course, Salazar is big news today, which is actually what I want to talk about right now, if that's okay with you. Of course, the former coach of Mo Farah. And Mo Farah is coming in for a little bit of scrutiny today. There are a few question marks. And, of course, Mo Farah, I'm sure, will be disappointed with this news in regards to Salazar because, of course, a lot of people will put two and two together. Given that Mo Farah, prior to meeting Salazar, he had reasonable success, but certainly wasn't extraordinary. When he met Salazar, the coaching of Salazar then led him to extraordinary success. And, of course, some people will put two and two together and maybe come up with five.
Yes, or the right answer or the wrong answer, who knows. But this is the point now, that as more and more detail is emerging of what Alberto Salazar was doing in order to get medals, essentially, to the Nike Oregon project, he even tested some performance-enhancing drugs on his own kids, just to see how that worked out, which is pretty dicey, I think, really. And then, as well, he's done various things, such as employing a doctor to just test, really, what the minimum amount of stuff it would take to show up in people's drug samples, etc. And there are massive question marks about Mo Farah, because Mo Farah was a European champion before he was with Salazar, started working with Salazar in 2010. And since then, he went on and had unprecedented success at multiple Olympics, multiple World Championships. And it's important to say that Mo Farah has never failed a drugs test, so we can't, have a go at that. But there's an interesting piece in the Times today that says that that when some of the Russian hackers, the Fancy Bear team they're called, leaked a load of people's personal information. So that's how we found out about Bradley Wiggins' therapeutic use exemption for an asthma drug. Something came out about Farah as well, which is that it was on a list of, quote, probable dopers by the athletics authorities there. That was since downgraded, by the way, so it's no longer on that list. But that was the long and the short of it there. And you just have to have these questions, and it's calling for it in the Sun now, saying Mo must give answers. And Mo Farah's statement yesterday was just not good enough. He came out and said, I'm glad that this is all over. He didn't throw his coach under the bus. He didn't really clear anything up, and he didn't really give much detail. I think a lot of people are going to find it very, very hard to believe that Mo Farah can be involved in the Nike Oregon project, given that one of the whistleblowers there said that he saw Salazar literally walking around with testosterone capsules and testosterone vials. Like, if Mo Farah has been living there for 7 years, how can you not have seen that this stuff was going on? And it does have to raise serious questions. And who is Alberto Salazar's best mate? Lance Armstrong. That's right, Lance Armstrong, to the point where he even emailed Lance Armstrong to say, Lance, call me ASAP, I've tested some stuff and it's amazing. Like, come on now, come on. I think the wider implication for this is athletics in general, which is that you get people like Paula Radcliffe coming out who, she's saying that they were almost looking for something. They were looking for a scandal. Well, no, actually, because I think, to be honest with you, what I don't like happen to me is being lied to, Paula. Now, when I watch the Olympics or I watch any kind of athletics meet, to be honest, in fact, you know what? I don't anymore. I just don't, because why bother getting up for something when, rightly or wrongly, the fact that this kind of stuff happens, you look at it now and you go, well, we are just being lied to, aren't we? That person has just won that. Whether or not they are clean, we don't know, because there's so many medications out there now that are working ahead of the speed at which they can track them down. So, you could be on all sorts of stuff. You could be on some kind of life-changing drug that wouldn't show up in a drugs test, that, of course, people like the Nike Oregon project would know all about because they're ahead of the curve. What's the point in watching athletics anymore?
Let's hear from Paula Radcliffe.
Because no athletes have been sanctioned, have real anti-doping violations been transgressed by athletes? I don't think so. Otherwise, we would have seen athletes banned at this point, and there hasn't been that.
Unless they're historical, because they were the whistleblowers, obviously, were the athletes who'd retired and some of them were no longer competing.
But they can still be sanctioned. We're still seeing athletes sanctioned now for anti-doping violations that are long retired. So I think, had there been anything there, that would have come out. And I think that's what a lot of people were waiting for. We talk about how long this investigation's gone on, how much money has gone into it, because people were waiting for something big. I think USADA thought it was something big. I think USADA were trying to maybe regain a little bit of face also for the Coleman fiasco and everything that's gone on.
That's relatively recent, obviously. I mean, that's only this summer, isn't it?
But in going with this, they've maybe been thinking they had something along the lines of the Lance Armstrong, which was huge. And this is bad. It's bad for the sport. It's good for the sport that it's been uncovered and that it's come out. But it is bad for the image of the sport.
Ask you about
what total rubbish that was. Seriously, what absolute nonsense that is. And it's because of people like Paula Radcliffe that, is it any wonder? You know what? I actually stand in solidarity with the people of Doha. Boycott athletics. And it's because of people like Paula Radcliffe just burying her head in the sand to this. What you have got there is people cheating, left, right and centre, institutionalised cheating, fronted up by arguably the largest corporation in athletics in the shape of Nike, who paid Salazar's legal costs, by the way. He's got a Nike tattoo on his arm, this guy. The whole thing's a sham. The whole thing.
But this is the thing, Paula Radcliffe, there is obviously a real agenda there, of course. Like, she wants athletics to be clean so badly because, of course, it impacts her in a big way. So this is where I guess it's difficult because people are going to come out. And she is, of course, a Nike athlete, isn't she? So, in fact, Kieran wants to have his word on this.
Yeah, I just saw a reply to that video on Twitter, which said, and there was me thinking Paula Radcliffe is anti-doping, when all the time she's anti-doping authorities, an apologist for the sport, not a pundit. And she actually replied to that tweet, saying, not at all. Would just prefer to see greater investment in catching and removing cheating athletes from our sport, as well as the systems behind them. It's a bit of a weak reply, I think.
Well, it's nonsense, isn't it? She hasn't got a leg to stand on. She hasn't got a leg to stand on whatsoever. This is the fact that you've got a guy here who was fronted up as probably the most visionary and successful coach that athletics has arguably ever seen, who was in charge of some of the world's greatest athletes, who, it can be now under no illusion whatsoever, was doping. He was running some kind of science lab involving human beings that would go out in full view of the world's media and full view of the world's press and in full view of just the world population, frankly, at things like the Olympic Games, knowing that he doped them up to the eyeballs with stuff and that they would win things off the back of cheating. You know, how many people that are clean athletes all over the world have had to overcome all sorts of hardship? How many Ethiopian runners that, you know, would run out barefoot and essentially desert for 50 odd miles a day are getting beaten by someone who has just got access to Nike Oregon's training program and can just take a shed load of testosterone?
The Twitter conversation continued. The words in Paula's tweet seemed conflicted, criticising US anti-doping's work but saying we need more investment and effort. I sense support for Mo and the usual platitudes about anti-doping. And Paula Radcliffe replied, maybe because I am conflicted. This is important and rules were broken, punishment rightly given, but not enough effort is being made to invest enough time and resources into finding out what blatant and deliberate cheats are doing and how to catch them. This takes focus off that.
What? Look, this is ultimately, and this is going to be the case, whether it's Paula Radcliffe or another athlete, of course you're going to want to protect your sport. Probably in the same way that...
they know athletics is just being tarnished now.
Well, but that's the point. I mean, imagine, it's hard to do a comparison because it's not the same in football as it stands. But let's say at some point football goes down this road and suddenly we hear of all these drugs cheats and people using stuff to be more powerful, quicker, whatever. Naturally, there'll be something in me that will want to protect the sport because it's a sport that I've played and I've believed it to be fair all this time. As much as it might be so clear to me that it isn't fair, there'll be something in me that will be desperate to say it is fair because I wouldn't want the reputation of football tarnished, for instance.
Yeah, but it's like VAR. This is what it is. It's like VAR because you'll see someone now and go, oh, gosh, that guy, well, look how quickly he's run that 100 metres. And then just wait a year and it turns out he's been doping. You know, this is the way that it is now. Why go into athletics now as a child? Because what this tells me and what has become quite obvious about what was going on at this Nike Oregon project is that you can be a world-class athlete. Right, that in itself is hard enough. All the hurdles, for want of a better phrase, that you've got to jump over to get there, to get to that level. But on top of that then, the best of the best, well, according to all the things that we've had here, are getting a bit of extra help as well.
The interesting thing for me is the moral compass, though. Like even Lance, well, this is it. Like Lance Armstrong, when it all came out, the impression you got wasn't one of an apologetic man. And as much as I've seen that footage and he said certain things that were the right things, it was almost the case of, look, we all do this. This is the way that it is. That was the impression that I got, and I get that impression from a lot of athletes.
Yeah, and I think Paula Radcliffe is taking this stance because she is still the quickest marathon runner, that we've ever had and that the world's ever seen in some races. And she feels like every single record-breaking athlete is going to be tarred with the same brush because, we can't prove anything. And I think that's why she's saying, well, more investment's needed because, unless we make everyone that's doped guilty, we can't prove otherwise. So it's that weird kind of trade-off she's got to have with her own mind.
So you know what's happened that's been very, very clever about all this is that when essentially this was happening with Russia, a lot of Russia's training programs were state-run. With China, same thing. So you go after the Russian government and you go after the Chinese government. What the Americans have done here is be very, very clever and hand the control over their best athletes to Nike and give them the Nike Oregon project. And so when something like this happens, it's Nike's fault. It's not seen to be state-sponsored doping by the hands of the American Athletics Federation. I would argue that it essentially is, because you send your top national athletes. This is what it was founded for. I know Mo Farah went and teamed up with the Oregon project, but it was originally founded to help American long-distance runners try and compete with African athletes. And this is it. This, for me, is on a par with state-sponsored doping, and it's our bias that changes this. We are biased against the nasty Russians and the nasty Chinese, and with good reason, to be fair, a lot of the time. This is the same thing, but just because it's got the stars and stripes on it does not make it any better.
No, you make a great point. I'm going to go back to a moral compass argument, and here's again, it's how we view things. That we've got our perception, which is that, look, we want to be watching sport, we want to see a fair game. You could give a completely random example, but for instance, a speed limit. Yep. You're driving, a speed limit is 30 miles an hour. I know that I could go 33, 34. It's probably not going to set off any cameras. I'm probably not going to get done. So I'll do that because, of course, naturally, you do push things if you can, and you'll find wherever your limit is in regards to whatever law it might be, and you'll push it to the absolute max. If I felt I could have got an advantage in a fair way without breaking the rules in football, for instance, I knew that the Red Bull, the energy drink, for a period of time, 3 Red Bulls and you were over the limit. But I knew that 2 Red Bulls and you were fine. So I would have 2 before a game because I knew that was pushing it to the absolute limit. So it comes back to that with this. I just get the impression that the likes of a Salazar, the likes of some of these that are involved in this, their moral compass is completely different, and actually they see it more in that way. They see it as a speed limit whereby, okay, well, if I can be one step ahead and I can find something that can't be tested, well, as it stands, it can't be tested. Therefore, it's okay. The moment that can be tested, I'll find the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. Chief Executive of US Anti-Doping Agency, Travid Tigart, says Salazar's suspension sends a strong message.
The right way is the only way to compete in sport today, and no longer can you abuse athletes, control athletes, to harm themselves or attempt to break the rules in a fashion that's not permitted.
So I guess that's the point, is that with this, it's how you view something. And of course, we're looking at this and we've got a very strong opinion of this because of our love of sport and our love of the idea that we're watching something that is fair. But ultimately, I guess it comes down to your mindset. And if you see a way in which you can stretch the rules, push the rules, and you think you can get round the rules, which obviously he has done for a long period of time, and he's been deemed successful until the last few days.
What I think should just happen now, right, is that every single person who's a professional athlete, so we saw it with the fact that it had to take hackers to come out and release the fact that Bradley Wiggins is on a therapeutic use exemption for an asthma drug. A lot of thyroid issues, I'm air quoting quite heavily here, thyroid issues is what's being used in this particular case. Every single professional athlete should have to forego their rights to medical anonymity. Why not? Because otherwise we're not going to know, are we? And let's have it right. Let's have these things stand up to scrutiny, because there are a lot of people out there, a lot of people in the medical profession out there who go, hang on a minute, it is absolutely bonkers that so many athletes at the Nike Oregon Project can have, coincidentally, the same thyroid issue. We wouldn't know about this if their medical records are kept under wraps. I know it seems like an excessive step and everyone has the right to privacy and all that, but I think the fans of athletics have the right not to be lied to. Clean athletes have the right not to be lied to. The only way that you're going to ever overcome this cloud over any athlete who's successful is if you can see their medical records right there in front of you and know exactly what they're on and when they're on it.
What do you think? 0208 70 20 558 on WhatsApp. It's 18 minutes past 9.
This is Love Sport.
You all right, mate?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Yeah? Really? It's just, there's a massive grizzly bear sitting on you. You sure you're okay?
Well, now that you mention it,
Sometimes we say we're fine when we're not, but with 1 in 4 experiencing a mental health problem, if your mate says he's fine, he might not be. Be in your mate's corner and ask twice. Time to change.
If you're in business, I bet you hate wasting money. We Do Taxi Tops can help you achieve minimum wastage on your advertising costs and maximum exposure. Our revolutionary taxi tops can target your potential customers in the right place at the right time, so your message has the greatest potential for making an impact. We Do Taxi Tops. Visit wedooh.com. We Do, the smarter, quicker way of advertising in London, supporting London businesses of all sizes.
If you fall asleep at the wheel, you'll put your life in danger, and the lives of others as well. Before you feel tired, pull off the road into a services or other safe area. Drink some strong coffee, and take a quick nap while the caffeine kicks in.
If you're having a nap, you've left your lights on, sir.
Right, cheers.
Think. Don't drive tired.
Exercise. It doesn't have to mean Lycra or a fancy gym membership. All you need is 10 minutes and you. Because a regular 10-minute brisk walk is a great way to get more active. Whether that's walking to the shops or getting off the bus to stop early. Picking up the pace and getting your heart pumping can make a real difference to your health. So, to see how much brisk walking you're doing and how you can fit more into your day, download the free Active 10 app, because there's only one you.
Putin is a great singer. I love him in that musical, Putin on the Ritz.
This is Love Sport.
I know, my friend. He deserves to play. I want to give him minutes. Every time don't play, I'm completely unfair to him. I'm sorry. But it's Kevin De Bruyne there, it's Gundogan there, it's David Silva, it's Bernardo, it's Rodri. It's what it is. I'm so sorry. So be patient. I know the best way to grow up is play minutes and minutes. But he's so young, and he will take, I don't know how many players in that age played the minutes in the past, in the recent past means 10, 20 years. It means he has played this last seasons with us, and he's going to be an incredible future player for us, because we count on them, we trust a lot of them, but he's what it is. So
I love that. Pep Guardiola is incredibly sorry, and that was obviously about Phil Foden, who did get the second goal in a 2-0 victory last night against Dinamo Zagreb. Delighted to say we've got Andy Hampson, Man City reporter for the Press Association, on the line. Morning, Andy.
Hey, good morning. Good to speak to you.
Good morning, likewise. Good, pleased to have you on. Pep Guardiola there after the game last night. We barely touched on Man City this morning, which is credit to Man City. Of course, the big story being Spurs this morning, their capitulation against Bayern Munich. But it did seem, and from what I've seen the highlights, it was business as usual for City, although they did have to wait until the final minute to get that second goal. How was the performance?
Yeah, I thought they played fairly well, to be honest, really. I mean, they had a bright start, and they created enough chances to get the game won in the first half an hour, really. They probably should have done, but I think Aguero was just having one of those nights. He had a couple of good chances. He had a goal disallowed as well. Bernardo Silva had a couple of good chances. Ilkay Gundogan hit the bar, and they really, judging on what they've suffered so far at the hands of VAR, they probably should have had a penalty as well for handball. I thought at the start of the second half they were starting to look a little bit laboured, perhaps the first 10 minutes or so. But then Guardiola obviously saw that, introduced Sterling at exactly the right time. He was brilliant. He changed the pace of the game immediately. A couple of good runs. He was troubling the Zagreb defence straight away, and then he scored the goal that broke the deadlock. And then it was just plain sailing for City after that, really. And then they got the second goal right towards the end with another great ball by Sterling, played in Foden, and another excellent finish from him.
I want to talk about both of those players. Actually, I want to talk about Riyad Mahrez as well, because his form has been exceptional this season. Has anything changed from last season?
Well, I think it has, really. I mean, he's just... I mean, Guardiola was speaking about this last weekend. I think defensively, he's certainly increased his work rate. He works really hard off the ball all the time. He doesn't stop running. And then when he's got the ball, I mean, we know the talent he's got. We saw it at Leicester. He's getting... he just seems a more confident player. He's getting more of the ball, and his delivery is absolutely superb. He really does look the business. And I think you have to give a lot of the credit to that to Guardiola, who does seem to have a wonderful talent of getting the best out of players. Certainly, players that want to work with him, he does improve them. We've seen that with Sterling and other players in the past as well.
Well, that's who I want to touch on next, is Sterling. Another goal. In fact, it's 18 goal involvements in the last 16 home Champions League games for Sterling. 11 goals, 7 assists. And seemingly, we're talking about him on this show pretty much daily at the moment. Where does he rank in terms of the world's best at the moment? Is it fair to enter him into that category?
I think he's got to be right up there. I mean, I'm not sure quite how high he is, really, when you've got players like Messi and Cristiano Ronaldo, who always seem to be the best two players in the world. But he's certainly got to be, in the top handful of players. I mean, you've got other wonderful players as well, Kevin De Bruyne, of course, for instance, and Sergio Aguero. They're also two great players. Yeah, Sterling belongs up there, and you can see him. He's improved year on year, as I say, with the City since Pep Guardiola arrived, and he's continuing to improve. I can see him getting better and better. And one day he could win the World Player of the Year. He's certainly talented enough.
Pep was quite apologetic in regards to Phil Foden, and obviously touched on the number of world-class players that are ahead of him at the moment. So naturally, it is going to be tough for Phil Foden to get all that much game time. However, he did come on and he bagged himself a goal. Is it a case of Phil Foden, the realisation that this will just be another season whereby he gets the odd cup game, and it might be that he gets 15, 20 games by hook or by crook, and that it might then be next season that he really kicks on?
It does seem to be that way, yeah. And Pep's been... He does like to talk him up. He described him in the summer as being, one of the best players he's ever seen, and coming from somebody who's coached Messi, I mean, that is quite a compliment. Yeah, I mean, people would like to see more of him. People have been talking about Foden for a number of years now. He's very highly rated. But yeah, as you say, that there are other great players playing in his position, and he's going to have to bide his time. He did speak to the club's in-house TV last night. He was asked about this, but he said he was very happy to bide his time. It was a case of being patient. Well, we've seen Kevin De Bruyne get injured. If more injuries happen, I think more opportunities will come for him. But otherwise, if they don't, he probably is going to have to wait a little bit longer. But this time next year, David Silva won't be around anymore. He is viewed as a natural successor to David Silva, and once he leaves, I think he is in good position to step up.
A lot been made of the centre-back issues that Man City have currently, obviously a couple of injuries. How will Pep deal with that in the coming weeks, do you think?
Well, Fernandinho has slotted in there. He's looked a good replacement for John Stones. I think he will continue there. Although we do wonder at his age whether he can play 2 or 3 games a week. He's got some very good youngsters, Eric Garcia and Taylor Harwood-Bellis, in reserve. We saw them in the game at Preston last week. They look pretty good. They play very well. They're spoken highly of in the academy. I think they will get some opportunities, but at the moment I think he's quite happy with Otamendi and Fernandinho. They do seem to look good together. Fernandinho is a competent centre back. He's obviously not the top level, but at the moment I think City think they can get through this little period, and they're hoping after the international break, John Stones will be ready to return.
And in terms of balancing the squad, and I've got no doubt that Pep Guardiola, given that the Champions League with City has eluded him, no doubt this will be a focus for him. So far, how's he balanced the squad in terms of league games, cup games, and obviously the Champions League games as well?
Well, I think he's done it very well so far. I mean, the season hasn't gone perfectly. Obviously, the slip of Norwich a couple of weeks ago, and they did drop points against Tottenham earlier in the season. But he's always juggled it fairly well throughout his time at City. These injuries don't help to the centre backs, and Leroy Sané is another big miss. But he's got plenty of talent in that squad, and we've seen Sterling was on the bench last night. He does know how to rotate the squad and get the best out of players. So I don't think he's got anything to worry about, really. He's gone through these tough schedules before, and I think they're well equipped to deal with it.
Great stuff. Andy, do appreciate you coming on. That's Andy Hampson, Man City reporter for the Press Association. They're touching on a fantastic win last night, beating Dynamo Zagreb 2-0. Maximum points from their 2 games so far. I want to talk a little bit of Sterling with you. Let's hear from Chris Waddle on his thoughts on Raheem Sterling.
Yeah, well, he's grew up, and we know now that he's still got, it sounds silly, but he's still got a lot to learn. I think he's got time, a lot more room for improvement. Striking the ball at times, he scuffs a few which you think, put your foot through it, side foot, whatever. There's still moments when he hangs on to it a little bit late, where he could roll somebody in. There's still a lot to come from his game. He's still young. People forget, he's been around for a long time. And, now it seems you can't do anything wrong, but there is, and I bet if you ask Pep Guardiola, he'd say there is room for improvement.
Not a word.
No, it's just noise. That wasn't
Was that Steve Bruce?
Just a collection of noises.
Yeah. I think what he was trying to say, for those that obviously couldn't understand it either, was that he can still improve. Do you think that is the case with Raheem Sterling?
Yeah, the idea that Chris Waddle is lecturing Raheem Sterling on how much of a talent that he is and what he's got to do is just laughable, isn't it? But yeah, Raheem Sterling. Look, Raheem Sterling has improved. This is the best I've seen him. I think, for me, he's possibly the best England player that I've seen. He was more destructive in an England shirt in recent games than I ever saw Wayne Rooney. And I know that Wazza for a while was clearly exceptional. But I think Raheem Sterling's seriously got it in his locker to push on and challenge Messi and Ronaldo. And look at it this year now. So Ronaldo is still obviously a world-class player, getting a bit older. Messi's got a recurring injury, which is keeping him out of the Barcelona side. Could this be Sterling's year where he gets hold of that Ballon d'Or?
That's a good shout. For me, this actually, I'll give you two a little comparison to make. So you've got Rashford, who we spoke a lot of yesterday, of course. A disappointing night for him against Arsenal in particular. So you've got Rashford, you've got Sterling. You rewind, say, 3 years, and you look at both, and you were to predict who would be further advanced at this point. For me, at that point, looking at Rashford and the promise that he had, I would have said Rashford. And certainly given the, I suppose, the natural, we talk a lot of nature nurture, but you look at the size of him, he's got the power pace, etc., and he had the guile. And then you feel 3 years on, has he progressed as much as he maybe could? Whereas Sterling, and this is where I give Sterling huge credit, is I feel that he has kicked on to another level. I think the environment at Man City is that much better at Man United, and I think he's the perfect example as to a player that has made the most of the environment and has got the right attitude to actually try and maximise what it is that he can offer.
I reckon Raheem Sterling's added about 10% to his performance simply by getting his own PR right. So Harry Redknapp tells a story about Gareth Bale where he came back from the summer holidays and he had his ears pinned back and he said that he was like an absolutely different player, and they kind of laughed and joked about it, but he actually seriously credited that one element of physical confidence added so much to that guy's game, something you will know all about, Rich.
You as well, when you had that surgery and of course, look, was it an issue before? I don't know, but certainly now you obviously walk around in a much different way.
Oh yeah,
much more confident.
Yeah, big time.
Big time.
But this is it. I wonder with Raheem Sterling whether or not him simply getting his PR right in terms of, obviously coming out and being on the right side of a lot of race-related arguments and things like that has actually added to his performance on the football pitch.
I suppose chicken and egg, isn't it? Because then instantly on the back of that, everyone stood up and said, actually, fair play, you've made a great point here, and everyone backed him. And on the back of that, the improvements that he has been making, people focusing on the good much more so, and his improvements have gone to, and his performances have gone to another level. So I would have to agree with you there.
Excellent. Okay, let's talk about Ross Barkley.
We can do.
Yeah, I want to.
Let's do it. We're going to do that very shortly. 29 minutes to 10.
Love sport.
You all right, mate?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Yeah? Really? It's just, there's a massive grizzly bear sitting on you. You sure you're okay?
Well, now that you mention it.
Sometimes we say we're fine when we're not. But with 1 in 4 experiencing a mental health problem, if your mate says he's fine, he might not be. Be in your mate's corner and ask twice. Time to change.
Hello, I'm Tim from Bolsover. I'm a retired teacher. I was looking for a better electricity deal from my parents when I got an email from a spokesman said it was a fixed deal for 2 years, which was better for my parents, less for them to worry about. And when I had to look at the sums, I had to recheck because I couldn't quite believe it. They were going to save over £900 each year they were on that deal. Needless to say, we signed up pretty quickly.
With a spokesmansaid.com. Fighting for you, saving you money.
If you're in business, I bet you hate wasting money. We Do Taxi Tops can help you achieve minimum wastage on your advertising costs and maximum exposure. Our revolutionary taxi tops can target your potential customers in the right place at the right time, so your message has the greatest potential for making an impact. We Do Taxi Tops. Visit WEDOOH.com. We Do. The smarter, quicker way of advertising in London, supporting London businesses of all sizes.
I love my brother. We do fun things like playing together. I like having hugs with Freddie. Freddie gives the best hugs. Freddie used to be very poorly, and the doctor said he might need a new liver. Then one day, a very nice person gave their liver to Freddie. It was amazing. We were so happy. Now he's around to give me more hugs than ever.
Tell your family you want to save lives. To find out more, visit organdonation.nhs.uk.
Love sport.
Love Sport Breakfast, me, Richard Lee, Patrick Christys, here with you for another half an hour or so. And then, of course, the fantastic Martin Bell is up next. We are here, of course, every day, 6:30 until 10. We are on WhatsApp, 0208 70 20 558. You can catch us on the socials at Love Sport Radio. You can even catch us on YouTube these days. Just type in Love Sport Breakfast and you'll see both myself and the stunning, attractive Patrick Christys, who is sat opposite me.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. I'm being nice to you today, aren't I?
Yeah, you are, actually. You are. It's very good of you. So, Ross Barkley.
Yeah, you want to talk about this, don't you?
Yeah, so I would implore anyone to just go and have a look online at some of the videos of Ross Barkley in the back of a taxi in Merseyside, spilling kebab and chips all over the place. Police are called. He's refusing to pay the cleaning bill. He then staggers all over the pavement. It's the type of thing that you've come to know and love from English footballers.
Indeed. Well, let's get the opinion of somebody. In fact, I'm interested to see what his opinion is. Mr. David Chidgey, Chelsea Fancast. Morning, Chidge.
Morning, Richard. How are you?
Very well. Hope you're well too. So what do you make of this Ross Barkley video? I assume you've seen the video.
Yeah. Storming a taxi cab. I mean,
Yeah.
who hasn't dropped their kebab and a load of chips in the cab on a Friday night?
Yeah, but
Especially
I have always paid for it, to be fair. I've always paid the cleaning bill.
Well, Patrick, you do it on a regular basis here in the morning.
Yeah.
And we often find it in the morning.
Yeah, but I'm not a multimillionaire footballer in the public
true,
eye. Do you know what I mean?
So is it, I mean, Frank Lampard played it down. It sounds like they've had a conversation between the two, but he didn't seem overly bothered.
No, I think he's handled it well, as you would expect. I mean, I must admit, I mean, here's the thing, Richard. You've played professional football recently. I'm a bit more. I have to be honest. I mean, I like a drink. It's well known. I like a drink, but I'm not a professional footballer.
Yeah.
So I'm a bit concerned about players going out on the lash a bit, especially before a game. I mean, I know that there's recovery time and all that, but they're professional athletes. Is that an issue?
For me, yes, because it was like, I suppose the rule of thumb was, although in the contract you're not allowed to drink within 48 hours of a game, that's what the contract states, but really what tends to happen is if you've got a midweek game, you do not drink. It's a case of if you've got Saturday to Saturday games, that might be an opportunity whereby after the game on the Saturday night, you've got a week until your next game, and if the club are giving you a couple of days off, which sometimes happens, that's your opportunity. So I was a little bit surprised to read this, of course, given that they do have the game tonight, which I'm assuming he will play a part in.
Well, who knows? I mean, the thing about Ross is that he's not been an automatic starter this season, and I think it's an interesting discussion that's been going around a lot of Chelsea supporters. Really, a lot of us were very, I like Ross. I loved him when he broke through the England side when he was an 18-year-old. I think there's a hell of a footballer in there, but it's just not clicking for him at the moment. And when we've got players like Ruben Loftus-Cheek coming back from injury, we've got Mason Mount in there. One wonders if he's in danger of losing his chance. So in a sense, he kind of needs to pull his finger out. I also wonder, Richard, if that's why, the whole brouhaha about the penalty in the last round against Valencia when he seemed to grab the ball and take it himself. I wonder if that's because he's feeling the pressure to make an impact and wanted to, try and cement his place a bit.
Yes, fair point. It was interesting listening to Frank Lampard yesterday because I thought he played it brilliantly in the press and that he laughed it off. Oh, he hasn't committed a crime. We all like a drink. I reckon when he saw him privately, I do think he'd be fuming. I do, because I think that it's just not a good look. It's a case of, like you say, he is battling for that starting place. You have got a game midweek. It's just not a good look on the club. So I think he's played it very, very well in the press, but my guess is that privately he will have given Ross Barkley an earful. I want to move on and talk a little bit about Mason Mount because, look, before the season there were a lot of question marks over the likes of Tammy Abraham, Mason Mount. Could they do it at this level? Are you surprised with just how well Mason Mount's done?
Well, I'm surprised to a degree because, hitherto, none of the talented youngsters, even when they got a very limited chance, seem to be able to make an impression. And what's impressed me most about Tomori in particular, actually, but Tomori, Mount and Abraham, is that they don't look overwhelmed, they don't look out of their depth, they don't look phased at all. In fact, that they've grabbed the chance and they look like they've been playing for Chelsea for years. And the other thing that I love, and what we're actually seeing on the pitch now, is that these guys have played in the same team from the age of about 8, and it looks like it. They look really comfortable, and they look comfortable playing in the same team together. Honestly, the mood at Chelsea this season is just the diametric opposite to what it was last season. Everybody's so positive and happy. It's brilliant to see. And a lot of it's down to these guys.
Yeah, well, look, absolutely, and you can actually feel that from being even outside the club. Someone like myself, that's exactly what you just said. There is not a shock. Like, it's exactly how it feels. And as a Manchester United fan, I look on in envy, of course. But how far can this particular Chelsea team go? Do you think we are going to be looking at this lot with potentially very few additions to this particular squad, maybe in 2 years' time, challenging at the top?
Well, why not? I mean, the thing is that as I said, we've got Hudson-Odoi. He's just come back, and of course he, broke through last year, got into the England side. Reece James got a game coming back from injury against Grimsby last week and looked a hell of a player. He's highly rated. We've got Loftus-Cheek to come back, who's probably the only one that's kind of broken through over the last few years. So there's a lot of them there. They've got a lot of talent, and we still have some experienced senior players as well. So, I mean, I actually think that if we can sort our defensive issues out at the moment, which is a real problem, leaking far too many goals, if we can sort that out, then I don't see why we can't challenge for a top 4 place this season. And as you said, in a couple of years down the line, add a few more world-class players, who knows?
Well, he did keep a clean sheet, of course, at the weekend. How important was it for Lampard to get that first Premier League win at home?
I think it was interesting, actually, which was more important, the clean sheet or the home win. I mean, obviously you would say the home win because, if he'd have failed to win against Brighton, then it just, it brings everything on a bit of a downer. So it was great to see that first home win of the league. But I think the clean sheet was also important, and I think particularly for Kepa. I mean, you and I have talked a lot about Kepa over the last year or so, and I think he's a great keeper. But I do sometimes wonder about his authority in the box and his confidence. So the fact that he managed to keep a clean sheet, I think, will do wonders for that.
Yeah, absolutely. And just touching on the game tonight, how do you see it playing out?
Well, it's really hard to call, I think. I mean, Lille, I think, are the weakest team in the group. Ajax beat them 3-0 last time out. They've got some interesting players, actually, with some Chelsea connections. Loic Remy plays for them. Timothy Weah, who is George Weah's son, he plays for them. And they've got Renato Sanchez and Jose Fonte. So, I mean, you look on paper and you think, well, Chelsea should beat that side. But they are very, very pacey up front, which, is also a vulnerability for us on the counter-attack. And I think, we need to be less naive than we were against Valencia. I thought Valencia did a brilliant, classic European job of mugging the team off, fall over a lot, get one goal, shut up shop, very clever. So I think Chelsea need to wise up and learn quickly. But I'm confident, as ever, I'm going to go for 2-1 for Chelsea.
Fantastic. I just want to touch on the game at the weekend very briefly. Of course, it's Southampton away before you go into the international break. There is a good chance that if you do win at Southampton, you could find yourself in the top 4, depending on other results, of course. But would that constitute a successful start to the season, do you think?
Oh, blimey, it's early days. I mean, the interesting thing this season, Richard, is how we quantify success at Chelsea, because we're so used to either winning a trophy or competing for the league. Anything other than that doesn't seem like a success. But I think the whole paradigm has shifted, and I think we are looking at progress, development, performances, bringing certain types of players through. I mean, the reality is, though, we've now got a whole slew of what I would call winnable games. I mean, we've got Southampton, Watford, Palace, Newcastle, Burnley all coming up before we play City away. I mean, there's no reason why we can't get, 10 to 12 points out of those games, and then we'll see where we are. I think really anything that happens on top of what I just said, brilliant.
Great stuff. Do you know what, the line's just breaking up a bit there. But Chidge, as always, appreciate you coming on. David Chidgey there, Chelsea Fancast, giving us his thoughts on the Ross Barkley incident and the game tonight.
Well worth a watch, that Ross Barkley video as well, actually. If you ever want to see... So when they play CCTV footage of like an earthquake in an office block in Japan, and everyone's like, all over the place. Ross Barkley's doing that, but there isn't an earthquake. And then he paused ships all over the place. His mate, I'm assuming it's his mate, has some kind of confrontation with police officers. He's got a bag full of kebab, which is, let's be honest, the dream. And it's just spilling out all over the pavement. Yeah, which is a waste, I think, to say the very least. But the idea that this guy seriously wants to break into the England side and he goes out and gets, battered at a weekend and refuses to pay a taxi bill, when you've got millions in the bank, and then dines out on a kebab afterwards, it's not a great look, is it?
It's not, because as and when you get to that level of fame and fortune, it's something you would never dream of.
I'm not an elite level athlete.
Are you not? I look at you, it's shocking.
When was the last time you ran a London Marathon, mate?
Okay, throw that one in, will you?
Yep, will do.
18 minutes to 10.
Love Sport Radio, the station giving fans a voice.
You all right, mate?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Yeah? Really? It's just there's a massive grizzly bear sitting on you. You sure you're okay?
Well, now that you mention it.
Sometimes we say we're fine when we're not. But with 1 in 4 experiencing a mental health problem, if your mate says he's fine, he might not be. Be in your mate's corner and ask twice. Time to change.
Hi, I'm Marilyn from Oxfordshire. My current insurance company quoted £245.08 to reinsure. And a spokesman said, obtain me a price of £173.49 for the same cover. This was a fantastic saving for me. And next time my car insurance comes up for renewal, I will be going through a spokesman said. No doubt about that.
With a spokesmansaid.com. Fighting for you, saving you money.
If you're in business, I bet you hate wasting money. We Do Taxi Tops can help you achieve minimum wastage on your advertising costs and maximum exposure. Our revolutionary taxi tops can target your potential customers in the right place at the right time, so your message has the greatest potential for making an impact. We Do Taxi Tops. Visit WEDOOH.com. We Do. The smarter, quicker way of advertising in London, supporting London businesses of all sizes.
If you're driving on a motorway and you see a red X sign overhead, you need to change lanes safely. Driving in a red X lane is an offence. Red X's are there for a reason, to protect you and others from danger. The lane may be blocked by a broken down vehicle or road workers, or the lane may be needed for the emergency services. So if you see a red X, change lanes safely. Highways England, connecting the country.
I believe in traditional marriage. I've had 3 of them.
This is Love Sport.
Love Sport Breakfast, me, Richard Lee, and Patrick Christys here with you for another 10-15 minutes. Great show coming up after us, so no doubt you will stay tuned. Mr. Martin Bell is up next. Of course, we will be back tomorrow at 6:30, as we are Monday to Friday. We've got Lewis in the studio. Morning, Lewis.
Hello again. How are you all doing?
We're very well. Before we get stuck into some front pages, just to let you know that in the rugby, France are winning 12-6 against the USA at half-time. Of course, England trounced the USA. Therefore, ergo, England are great.
Yeah, well, exactly.
We did speak yesterday of England, of course, had an honesty session, which, went a long way, and I'm sure that's played a big part in England's success so far.
Yes, I think so. And who knew, actually? I didn't realise until the start of the game that the French flag actually had blue and red in it as well. So there we go. Now, I believe that you're here to do some of the front pages.
I am indeed, yeah. I was going to lead on this Prince Harry story, which for those that haven't followed it, Meghan wrote a private letter to her father. That was then leaked and published in the Mail on Sunday a while ago. Since that, Meghan has, with a law firm, have opened a lawsuit against the Mail on Sunday for publishing private materials, and it's all kind of getting very messy. And now Harry's come out and kind of fairly said, I think that the treatment that Meghan's getting is pretty appalling. Whether the letter should have been published or not, he says it shouldn't have been, but he's basically saying this is mimicking the way that he saw his mum be treated, and that he feels like it's now his responsibility to come out and say, let's put an end to the treatment that Meghan's receiving in the press.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, this, because obviously there is such a thing as legal precedent, and my understanding of what's happened, which may well be proved to be wrong over the course of this court case is going to go on, my understanding of what's happened is that Meghan Markle's dad, who of course is pretty miffed about a lot of things, also looks like a bit of a loose cannon, apparently gave this letter to the Mail on Sunday. Now, the Mail on Sunday have gone to Meghan for comment on this. Obviously, the Palace didn't want any comment, so they've published it. Now, the worry that I have, which is that if this sets a precedent now, if the Mail on Sunday lose this court case, to me, what that would say is that you would no longer be allowed to publish any leak without the author's consent, which is a really tricky situation to be in.
Yeah, the whole question of legal precedent definitely will be something that we'll have to look into further when this progresses down the line, because, I mean, just looking at kind of political figures all around the world who, thanks to leaks like this, the public have been able to see information that they would otherwise not be able to. So yeah. I think that there's two sides of this. One is certainly that Harry has every right to say that Meghan's not being treated fairly in the press. But there's also one that says if we set a precedent now that stuff cannot be leaked in the press, like kind of that old thick of it scene of we're going to have an inquiry into leaking, where does that really lead us down the line?
I think this is the thing. They weren't complaining about publicity when she launched a fashion line or when she was on the front cover of Vogue or when they needed £2 million of taxpayers' cash to turn Frogmore Cottage, it's not a cottage, into essentially a fortress in the countryside. It's all very well and good wanting the people then, but they're not when they're being critical. And I don't really think that's the way the world works.
Yeah, it's a very fine balance. Moving on, I do apologise for bringing this up again, but we have going to really, really briefly touch on Brexit because Boris Johnson's about to give his, in about an hour and a half or so, will give his conference speech, his first conference speech as leader, and he's going to, hopefully, we're imagining he's going to lay out some of his plans for the Irish backstop. So we got onto this yesterday, and part of what we said was that there's going to be customs checks every mile either side of the border. That is looking like that is going to be confirmed. There's also going to now be basically a difference between the Northern Ireland and the UK is that there will be customs differences and then regulatory differences. So in actual fact, this has been pushed down the road yet again. So up until 2025, his plan is that there will be customs checks on the borders, then there'll be regulatory checks for stuff that enters the UK over the Irish Sea. So basically, Ireland will continue to be part of the single market up until 2025. As we said yesterday, these plans have already been kind of rubbished by people in Ireland and people in Brussels. But, I mean, I suppose he's got to try and come up with something.
Yeah, we'll have to wait and see. And also, as well, look, as long as Boris Johnson proposes something that technically could work, even if it realistically can't, then the pressure is on the EU. He can just go, well, look, I've given you an idea, you've knocked it back, that's it then, we'll get no deal.
Yeah, whatever happens, it looks like it will play. He could spin it to playing well for him because he's already managed to set up the EU as being kind of his enemy. So as long as he can say that he's brought something, he can then play on that old line of, well, the EU are just going to not let us get away with anything. And yeah. So finally, there's also been a really big study released today, which is kind of harrowing to read, to be honest. And it's a trade union called Congress, have released research into kind of the working population of the UK. And what it's revealed is that 1 in 5 workers have in the last year skipped meals to make ends meet. This has gone up from 1 in 8 2 years ago, which is really, really concerning and basically just goes to play in the fact that there's such little confidence in where your next paycheck is going to come from. So if you have confidence that you're going to be paid next week, the week after that, you can budget in and not have to think, right, I physically cannot have this meal because I just don't know when I'm going to get paid.
Yeah, I mean, look, you only have to look at me to know that all you need to know about skipping meals and the damage that can do to someone. You know, I mean, not a day goes by that I don't skip some form of meal. I mean, today, for example, I skipped the meal I normally have before breakfast.
Oh, and what is that usually?
Oh, just anything with bacon in it.
Yeah. On a serious note, I didn't want to ask you that. Obviously, with the fears of breakfast, there's so many fears.
No deal breakfast.
The fears of Brexit, is that the reason you've been storing much food?
Yeah, well, that and I hibernate most winters.
Right.
So that's it. Yeah. It's all
got cheeks like a hamster.
I have. Yeah. No, but it is a concern, though, isn't it? But then part of me as well is the kind of soulless, cold-hearted part of me goes, well, you know, we're all in this together in a way, aren't we? I suppose, apart from that 1%.
Well, there's certainly arguments to be had. Talking about all it together, they've also shown that a fifth have to go without heating because they can't pay for it. And to be honest, sat in this studio now, it is freezing. So I can start to understand.
That's the ice around Rich's heart, actually, that's just thawing us out. Although, you know, look, hey, bring on global warming.
There we go.
You know, and that's clearly the answer.
And there's the message from today's show.
I've just bought a diesel car. Can you tell?
Right, we're going to touch a little bit on rugby. Sam Underhill was in an interview that went wrong.
Contest, I think.
Let's stay up.
It's a brilliant ringtone. I think it's. Yeah, sorry, I'll try and get back to the question. I think it's
the breakdown.
The breakdown, more about.
You were saying it was a physical contest.
It's a physical contest. I think more important than ever is your sort of timing around it.
Slightly embarrassing that for Sam.
Good job Roy Keane wasn't there, was it? Whose phone's that?
Yeah.
Whose phone's that?
Someone would have been getting it. Back to Doha. I want to ask you about this. Adam Gemili missed out on a world medal by 500ths of a second, but said he ran like an amateur as he finished 4th.
I guess just talk us through what the overriding emotion is for you right now.
I'm just gutted. I had it, and I just lost. I just gave it everything. I lost all my bounce at the end. I just had nothing left. All my form went out the window, and I ran like such an amateur. Like it was. Oh, I can't believe that I came so close. This is such a good opportunity. I've been running so well through the heats. My body feels good, and I just let it go when I had it, and I'm so sorry. Like I don't need to. People always say don't apologise, but I just feel like I've let so many people down. There's so many people that have believed in me and sent me such nice messages over the last few days, and the team that I work with, they've done so well. The last 2 years I've been plagued with injuries, and that's showed in my performances, and I've got back to where I should be, and to not even be able to break 20 seconds is so disappointing and heartbreaking. And I had the medal and it just slipped out of my hands, and yeah, I don't know. I have to take the positives, I guess, from being written off pretty much as labelled a relay runner, whatever you will be. Like it just shows you just need that tight-knit people around you to believe in you, and you can achieve whatever you want to achieve. And for me, that hasn't happened today, but it's relit something inside of me now.
Oh, poor bloke.
Heartbreaking. I guess that's it, right? You train for however long you train for, and it comes down to 500ths of a second. And that's the... I like to refer back to the film Any Given Sunday, where they talk about inches. Inches are everywhere.
Yeah, well, you know a thing or two about that. So yeah, but I mean, it is just a very tricky situation for Adam Gemili, of course, and I think you just feel so sorry for the guy. Just listening to him there was heartbreaking.
That was from BBC Sport, of course, and those who haven't seen the footage, actually, it's worth just the fact that I guess it sums up sport in a moment, right? In that you put so much heart, soul, energy, emotion into something. Sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. You hope for Adam's sake that he actually takes the positives from this, because, of course, he's done so well to get to this position in the first place.
Yeah, he has, and it's kind of a shame. Makes this Salazar case makes it such a shame, because when you hear athletes speaking like that, speaking so honestly, speaking with such passion about their sport, and it does differ to the kind of media training that you get from so many other sports people, to then have the Salazar case kind of. And then when you hear someone like Gemili speaking there, and it kind of brings you back to the fundamentals of how great and how much emotion and how much talent there is in display.
It's a great point, and we touched on it a lot today in regards to Salazar.
And I think it's that fear, isn't it, of having to be in Adam Gemili this morning, of being, 500ths of a second outside the medals. You can see how it's that fear that maybe leads people to, oh, go on, I'll just take a little bit of this, or I'll just do a little bit of that.
But at the same time, and we assume, of course, we have to assume that the majority of all athletes are clean. He will be able to look at himself in the mirror and say, well, look, do you know what? I've given it absolutely everything, and it wasn't meant to be this time. But going into the next opportunity, because there will be more opportunities for him, it's as long as he takes the right lessons from him. But certainly listening to that interview, he's obviously heartbroken. Yeah,
100%. And look, so are we. Someone who's been there or thereabouts, like I said, who's played with injury. On a plus note, Dina Asher-Smith is expected to win the 200 metres final this evening. In fact, the Sun are boldly proclaiming that she could run with an egg and spoon in hand and still win. So good luck, Dina.
Fantastic. Well, look, Lewis, thank you very much, as always, for your contribution. Patrick, we are coming towards the end of our show. I always like to ask you for a little highlight of today's show, because we've touched on all sorts. We've gone into depth on Mr. Salazar.
I particularly liked it when we put some nominees forward for the Drug Olympics.
Yes.
And yes. Ozzy Osbourne was the runaway winner.
Is he going to be the captain of this Olympic team?
He'd be the flag bearer.
Do you think?
At the start, yeah.
The issue is he's going to have to walk that flag in, isn't he?
Yeah, it's going to be the slowest stadium entrance ever, as Ozzy just
Do we get to hear from Ozzy Osbourne one more time?
No,
we don't. No, we don't. He's not available for comment.
He's unconscious.
Well, look, as always, thank you, Patrick. Absolute pleasure. Thank you, Kieran. Thank you, Lewis. My name's Richie. Do stay tuned. Great show coming up next. Mr. Martin Bell. You listen to Love Sport.
This is Love Sport.
Get ready for Brexit.